Yeah, Steve's did that.
Yeah. Fortunately, I didn't see the both participate in the planning here and
Stand up.
Good. Oh, yeah, I was gonna say.
Not total.
Yeah.
I call the meeting to order. Good evening and welcome to the March 4th, 2025 business meeting of your Ashland City Council. Councillor Bloom will offer the land acknowledgement.
We acknowledge and honor the Aboriginal people on whose ancestral homelands we work, the Kirakutsum Band of the Shasta Nation, as well as the diverse and vibrant Native communities who make their home here today. We honor the first stewards in the Rogue Valley and the lands we love and depend on. Tribes with ancestral lands in and surrounding the geography of the Ashland watershed, including the original, past, present, and future indigenous inhabitants of the Shasta, Takelma, and Athabascan people. We also recognize and acknowledge the Shasta village of Quakaka, where the crow lights, that is now the Ashland City Plaza.
Thank you, and Councillor Nauer will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please, Alyssa.
Hanson.
Here.
Duquesne. Here. Microphone. Here. Kaplan.
Here.
Mayor Graham.
Here.
Bloom.
Here.
Dale.
Here.
Nauer.
Here.
So we have a couple of mayor's announcements this evening. The first is I want to make sure that everyone who is here this evening understands how to sign up to speak to the council this evening. On the table, as you were coming in, there are a couple of request forms, speaker request forms. The white sheet is if you are here to speak to us this evening on anything but the public hearing for the land use appeal. What you will do if you've come here to speak to us this evening on an agenda item, you'll make sure that you write the agenda item number down on this form so that we can bring you up at the right time. If you are here this evening to speak to us about something that is not on the agenda, you will do that during public forum. Please make sure that Lissa has your forms in the box there before we get to the beginning of the item that you have come to speak on, and that will allow us to manage our time appropriately. Also wanted to point out that there is a second a yellow form this evening, and that is for people who have come to speak to us this evening on the land use appeal. And just as a reminder, in order to speak during this evening's proceedings, you need to have testified before the Planning Commission, and you also need to have submitted written comments about this appeal. So with that, we will move on to the other mayor's announcement. The first is that I would like to offer a proclamation in honor of Women's History Month. Whereas American women of every race, class, and ethnic background have made historic contributions to the growth and strength of our nation in countless recorded and unrecorded ways. Whereas American women have played and continue to play critical economic, cultural, and social roles in every sphere of the life of the nation by constituting a significant portion of the labor force working inside and outside of the home. Whereas American women have played a unique role throughout the history of the nation by providing the majority of the volunteer labor force of the nation. Whereas American women were particularly important in the establishment of early charitable, philanthropic, and cultural institutions. Whereas American women of every race, class, and ethnic background served as early leaders in the forefront of every major progressive social change movement. Whereas American women have served our country courageously in the military. Whereas American women have been leaders not only in securing their own rights of suffrage and equal opportunity, but also in the abolitionist movement, the emancipation movement, the industrial labor movement, the civil rights movement, and other movements, including the peace movement, which created a more fair and just society for all. Whereas, despite these contributions, the role of American women in history has been consistently overlooked and undervalued in the literature, teaching, and study of American history. And whereas American women find themselves in a situation where the gains made through hard work and persistence over many decades are now threatened. Now, therefore, I, Tanya Graham, Mayor of the City of Ashland, Oregon, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby acknowledge March as National Women's History Month and call upon the people of Ashland to observe this day with appropriate reflection, learning, and a renewed commitment to the equality of women. In Ashland, we are better together.
Amen. Thank you, Mayor.
And my last comment, thank you, but I will just remind the audience that there is no clapping, and you could do this, but please no sound. The last announcement I would like to make is a very exciting and fun one for me personally, and that is that the applications for the If I Were Mayor contest are due on March 10th. So if you know a young person in elementary, middle, or high school in Ashland, and they are interested in civic life, and they have thoughts about what they would do if they were sitting in this chair, please encourage them to get their applications in to the city before March 10th, and there's information on the website about how to do that. We will now move into approval of minutes. Are there any changes to the minutes? Okay, the floor is open for a motion to accept the minutes as edited. I know there was an early edit this week. Councilor Bloom?
Yeah, I move approval of the minutes as amended.
I second that approval.
Okay. Roll call, please, Alyssa.
Nauer,
Yes.
Dale,
Yes.
Bloom,
Yes.
Kaplan,
Yes.
Duquesne,
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Okay. Next agenda item is the approval of the consent agenda. Would any councilor like to remove any of the items? Councilor Hanson?
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to remove the e-bike regulations. I don't see a letter by that.
A.
A.
A, thank you.
And Councilor Duquesne?
Ditto.
Ditto, okay. Any others? Okay, and then the floor is open for a motion to accept the remaining 2 consent agenda items. Counselor Dale.
Sure, I move to approve the consent agenda items B and C.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Dale,
Yes.
Bloom,
Yes.
Kaplan,
Yes.
Duquesne,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Nauer.
Yes.
We go back now to consent agenda item A. Councilors Hanson and Duquesne, I understand that you both pulled. Let's start with Councilor Hanson.
Thank you, Mayor. The Transportation Advisory Committee and our chair, Linda Adams, is here to speak if we would like additional information, has requested that we look into regulating e-bike laws and holds up an example from Eugene that escaped the packet. So we apologize for those that were looking at this item but did not get to see that. The Eugene safety laws roughly regulate class 1, 2 e-bikes differently than class 3 bikes. But in many respects, the adoption of e-bikes has changed the micro mobility transportation dynamic in many towns, and our town is included in that. We have more e-bikes. We have people of different abilities riding bikes, different ages. Young people are riding e-bikes, and it's fairly unregulated at this point. We don't have an enforcement arm in the Ashland Police Department that has the bandwidth to really take this on. So in addition to regulating and writing down our laws, we also, as the Transportation Advisory Committee outlines, are looking to do proper outreach to schools and different parts of the community through flyers on bike shops and other resources to get the word out, which is that e-bikes are intended for riders 16 years and older. They are class 1 and 2 are regulated under 20 miles an hour, and therefore can operate on a bike path. And class 3 e-bikes, when they're under 20 miles an hour, are also able to ride legally on most of our bicycle friendly paths and bike lanes, but only class 3 e-bike can be at top speeds while on the street acting as a vehicle or in the bike lane. And we would like to further work on this and bring it back to council for adoption. There's some handy information here at the eugene-or.gov safety laws. If anybody is interested in finding out more information, they can email myself or Linda and the Transportation Advisory Committee.
Councilor Duquesne?
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you for your additional information, Councilor. I wanted to pull it also to be able to not lump the sums together. I did a little research on my own after reading what Eugene has done, and we do have 4 different types of e-bikes. And when I read it and it put the micro mobility in there too, and I'm thinking, no, that's like Segways and electric scooters and electric skateboards, and all of these are different. So I'm glad that this came to council. I'm glad that there are going to be rules and regulations. I believe that the age needs to be enforced when the TAC is putting this together, and also to distinguish the difference between micro-mobility and e-bikes, because e-bikes can weigh anywhere from 30 pounds to 90 pounds. And if you have 90 pounds and a 14-year-old and they're just out there just having fun, that can be very dangerous. So I look forward to this coming back, doing the research, dividing them up and coming back, and not on the consent agenda, but on the agenda so that we can actually read it, go through it, and approve of it. Thank you.
Counselor Hanson.
Thank you, Councilor Duquesne. Well put. And I wanted to add that the Transportation Advisory Committee has volunteered to work with legal on drafting this ordinance as to not burden staff,
Very good.
extra burden to staff.
Counselor Kaplan.
Great, thanks, Mayor. I too was going to pull it because I didn't really see in the packet a statement of what's the problem that we're trying to solve. So I've heard some from Councilor Duquesne, a little bit of the concern about children or young people under age 16 with a heavy e-bike. But I also see this slide up here that talks about Oregon state e-bike laws. Are those in fact the statewide laws? And we would be intending to go beyond that? What is the intention and what is the problem we're trying to solve?
I think the intent is to start with the Oregon state laws as the baseline and look at the existing ordinance that has bicycle regulations, look at other municipalities' ordinances like Eugene and other locations in the state. And we've even discussed at the Transportation Advisory Committee, New York City has a very robust program for regulation of e-bikes. And look at those regulations and the existing code that the city has in place and try to provide a homogeneous solution to regulating e-bikes. Also, while, as Councilor Hanson said, looking at public education and outreach is a two-pronged approach. We've had, from the Transportation Advisory Committee, a lot of complaints about e-bike usage and e-bike safety on the bike path itself specifically. From a speed limit perspective. We also know that we have to coordinate with the PD because there has to be an enforcement arm of this. So it's working together with legal, the Transportation Advisory Committee, and PD to develop something that makes sense for Ashland, that's enforceable, and mimics what other communities are doing to provide a safer environment for all users, you know, not just e-bike users, but also the pedestrians and other cyclists and motorists and walkers that use those facilities. An example that's been brought up multiple times in our Transportation Advisory Committee is one of the members has actually been hit twice in a crosswalk by a rider of an e-bike while he was legally crossing. So it's the, you know, look at that and come up with a solution that we think is best for Ashland. As part of that process that we've discussed is to develop a draft code and hold a public hearing at the Transportation Advisory Committee to take public comment on that, compile all that information, and then bring that back to council for consideration of movement of an ordinance change moving forward.
Is it a follow-up?
Yes, follow-up.
Councilor Kaplan?
Yeah, thank you for that, Scott. So the motivation is because one of the Transportation Council members has been hit twice while as a pedestrian crosswalk. Do we have data? Is there data? We have near miss. Do we have crash data? How many incidents are we really talking about with an e-bike versus cars? I mean, there's all kinds of other things that it seems like we'd be spending time on, and I guess I'm concerned as well about the enforcement capacity. Councilor Hanson said that police don't have an ability to enforce it, and I'm looking, if you go back one slide, there's a pretty robust regulations for what's necessary, and we don't, if our police don't already have the ability to enforce that, for example, hitting somebody in a crosswalk, I think would be against the law as it is currently. E-bikes, whether they're or push bike for that matter, as a non-e-bike rider, would also be violating the traffic law if I hit somebody in a crosswalk. So I guess I'm not really sure that extra code is the answer. I definitely would support extra education, but it seems like we're jumping to like adding code, adding enforcement responsibility that comes along with the code without actually doing a real deep analysis of the problem.
And I think part of the code intent is to be an educational background basis as well. So it's meant to be used, like most of the municipal code represents an educational platform that you can outreach to on issues, storm drain ordinance, only rain in the drain. There's a code that we back as an educational component. And I think that's part of the intent of updating the regulation. The other thing that we talked about from the advisory committee status is just to look at the actual ordinance itself. And in today's time, a lot of the municipal codes, as we've talked about, are significantly old and maybe have some outdated legal language, some outdated references that could be updated to reflect, 2025 times as well as part of an overall process. This is kind of tangent to the Transportation Advisory Committee's work plan already, is looking at these issues, education, outreach, regulations. So it's part of their component already. And I think that that's why the group itself and even Councilor Hanson was interested and trying to work as a group and not burden staff time too much in development of some language that could be considered for an ordinance update.
Councillor Dale?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, so Scott, I quick question here. I think I just want to get the order of operations correct here. So it's my understanding, reading this, I was kind of confused by the packet about the motion was to approve the recommendation of the Transportation Commission to direct staff, but it sounds like what we want to do is actually ask the TAC to put together some sort of, bullet points or just give us kind of an outline of what they're thinking, recommendations before we start going and cutting up code here, what they would like to do. Is that what I'm understanding here?
This is basically that, but there's also some staff time associated
Right,
with that.
so that's...
One of the things that I would ask of legal is one of the things that I would ask of legal is they have their network of attorneys throughout the state where they can contact and get information from what other municipalities are doing to regulate this. So it's some of my staff time associated with my staff liaison ex officio member to the TAC itself, and then some of legal's time to do some outreach with us and review some of the information we provide against, enforcement and connecting with PD on that as well moving forward. So there is some upfront staff time associated with this before we get to the full-blown potential recommendations on an ordinance update. And as I said, we'd have to really go and have a public hearing and take comment on potential changes at the TAC level to bring that forward to the council.
You have a follow-up,
Yes,
Councillor Dale?
please. Thank you. Thank you, Scott. But just so I'm clear, step one would be staff time for you and your staff, and I'm sure legal, to get information to the tax so that they could scrub it and do their thing and come back with recommendations. That's
Correct.
step one.
Correct.
And what would you say the timeline would be on that relative to staff time?
I think we're thinking of 2025 as an overall timeline.
Okay.
Based on the other things that the TAC is working on, we'll be starting the, transportation system plan update, the SS4A action plan process. And so they have other work components, near miss and crash review, mitigation efforts that we'll be looking at through this year. So they have a pretty full work plan. So my expectation is most of this year we would feather that into the meetings as the agenda allows for discussion.
Thank you.
Thanks. And just, we have a couple of other folks in the queue, but I just wanted to provide a little bit of context because we have asked our committees to follow their work plan, and this is in the space of the work plan, but we've also directed that they are not able to direct staff with staff time. And that's really what this recommendation is. They're checking in with us to make sure that we want this body of work done and that we are okay with staff spending some time on it. And that's definitely following the new structure that we've put in place for our committees. And so that's why you haven't seen something like this behind the dais here, because this is part of the new set of structures around the committees. Councillor Bloom.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate this. I look forward to hearing more of what an ordinance would look like. Certainly, to Councillor Kaplan's point, what the impacts would be, what is our capacity to actually enforce a lot of this. And it also, it's kind of a sticking point for me is I'm not particularly interested in a committee drafting ordinances. I think it sets a dangerous precedence. They're not regulatory bodies. So certainly input on ideas that would be included in an ordinance, but I think that that's something that needs to stick with staff, legal, and ultimately the council when it comes to ordinance language and regulations.
So it's my understanding that what is being requested here is staff time so that the council or the committee could come forward to council, maybe in a study session, and say, these are the things that we would like to recommend, and then it would go to staff to draft the ordinance? Is that, am I understanding that
Staff and
correctly?
legal would have to draft the actual ordinance. So, previously, what I've done is I've drafted language and that's gone to legal for final review and approval for any sort of ordinance that I've been associated with. And then legal is the final buy-off because they do the yeoman's share of the work to make sure that everything is legitimate before it comes to the council for consideration.
Yeah, I think Councilor Blue makes a good point that we want to make sure that we segregate that particular element of the work at the staff level. Councilor Duquesne?
Thank you, Mayor. Scott, I just wanted to follow up. Councilor Kaplan asked about data, and you mentioned the one individual being hit. I didn't hear that question answered. Do you have information about how many accidents or near accidents that people have encountered with e-bikes or micromobility?
We do have all of the data. It's just a matter of parsing out that specific genre out of our crash and near miss data and bringing that forward. But as an informational item to the council, every 6 months, the TAC reviews all of the crash data that's recorded by the city and all of the near miss data that's put up by the citizens and community members in our near miss application. And then they discuss potential mitigation efforts for what they see are hotspots or issues. And that's part of our overall program. So we do have that data, and that's something that we can parse out and have a discussion about with the study session if the council so chooses to move forward with this.
I agree. Thank you, Scott. And I too agree with Councilor Bloom that it should be legal and staff. And I look forward to it coming to a study session. Thank you.
Councilor Hanson?
Thank you, Mayor. To your question, Councilor Kaplan, what problem are we trying to solve for? With the adoption of e-bikes, we're trying to get ahead of education as much as we are to get these potential regulations on the books. And Linda Peterson-Adams in this outline suggests that the TAC will work and coordinate with RVTD on education, develop brochures and educational materials, get information on our city website, bike shops, utility billing flyer, Southern Oregon University, Safe Routes to School Coordinator, Ashland School District, and Ashland Police Department. I mean, we just don't think that the community is aware of the wide range of technologies. Some are unregulated and will go 55 miles an hour that look identical to a Class 2 bike that is regulated to 20 miles an hour. And although the police have the ability to enforce the state law, I don't believe staff has or the chief has directed enforcement. So and I'm not really personally thinking the enforcement thing is going to be a big part of this. Really, it's educating parents and riders that if you buy an unregulated 55-mile-an-hour e-bike for your 12-year-old, that they are going to be out in the world with this technology. And did you know the laws? And did you know the safety? And did you know that when you carry a passenger on your e-bike who doesn't have a helmet, that you are liable for that passenger? All of this is great, I think, personally, as an e-bike rider and a parent. I think that this is great technology. It's keeping cars off the street. It's keeping people moving at a younger age and an older age. I think it's great. Also, we see some chaos that's coming to the Transportation Advisory Committee in the form of emails and complaints we just want to get ahead of in our Ashland way. So it's with that spirit that this is coming forward, really.
Councilor Kaplan?
Yeah, thanks, Councilor Hanson, and I appreciate that perspective and that additional information. I also appreciate what I think is what I heard most loudly and clearly in what you said is education and really awareness raising. And I think that I'm 100% behind education and awareness raising and using our TAC, our Transportation Advisory Committee members to do that. Where I have the question is really spending staff time on drafting code and doing a whole bunch of things that, we just spent a weekend session on, really looking at trying to narrow and focus staff's efforts. This didn't rise to discussion in that. Of course, it's a fairly smallish thing, but not nothing. I'm hearing that there's going to be initial staff time involved. I'm hearing that there's going to be both from Public Works and from legal. I'm hearing there's going to be public hearings. That's additional staff time. I'm just not sure that code is the answer to the problem. And I absolutely, of course, I've also seen the types of e-bikes that are zipping down the greenway or something, flying past my, merely, human-powered bike. But I'm not sure that the answer is code that goes beyond what the state already provides. If it's a matter of directing the police to enforce state laws, I think that may be a reasonable thing to do. But I'm not really convinced that we need to go to code at this point. I think education is what I think is necessary, and I'd love to support that. But I wouldn't really be willing to support developing code at this point. I just don't think it's necessary or timely.
So if there are no additional questions, the floor is open for a motion.
Yes, I move.
Bloom?
Sorry,
Councilor Bloom?
sorry, I jumped on that. I move to direct staff to begin the process of developing updated municipal code regulations regarding e-bikes and micromobility devices, and to return at a study session when appropriate and time allows for further discussion or review.
Councilor Hanson, did you want a second?
Yeah, I can get behind those additions on that. That's fine. I second that.
Councilor Bloom, would you like to speak to your motion?
No, I mean, I think that it doesn't hurt to have these conversations. I think that there are some holes. I have serious questions about the enforceability, and I think it would be appropriate why I added at a study session so that we could also have APD come and discuss what their abilities are around that. And then I also added in that language when is appropriate. I mean, I understand that 2025 is the goal. We're still early in the year, but I want to be flexible with staff's time, and I think that addition allows for that flexibility.
Councilor Hanson?
I think I've said it all. Appreciate everybody's attention to it. Thank you.
Any further comments? Councilor Dale?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I appreciate all that's said, and I appreciate the amendments to the motion. I do, and as an e-bike rider, as a acoustic bike rider, I think. I get this, and as a bike rider in town for many, many years, and having kids that ride bikes too. But, and I believe in all that we're trying to do here. That said, I tend to lean with what Councilor Kaplan is saying relative to I want to be very, very mindful of staff time going into this. So it's not that I don't support the idea behind this. I just, I struggle with the directing staff at this time. Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Duquesne?
Thank you. I appreciate what's been said also. And one of the reasons why I wanted to pull it is because I think it's important that we have rules and regulations behind this and get in front of it before somebody gets hurt or killed. We need to have the buy-in from the citizenry, and that's through education. However, we need to hold people accountable, have liability, educate the community. This, in my opinion, cannot go undone because I see more and more e-bikes and I see more and more almost misses. And I am glad that, I think it'll be time well spent, and I'm glad that the TAC is going to work with legal and make this happen.
I would just add that we are actively, as a city, encouraging people to take up electric bikes with our incentive program. And so if the Transportation Advisory Committee is concerned that our code is not where it needs to be for that influx of people, then I think that it makes sense to take a look at it and also appreciate the concern around staff time. So it's always a balance. Any further discussion? Roll call, please, Alyssa.
Nauer,
Yes.
Dale,
Nope.
Bloom,
Yes.
Kaplan,
No.
Gina,
Yes,
sorry, Duquesne,
that's okay.
Hanson.
I'm Gina.
Yes.
We have one special presentation this evening, the Travel Ashland Report. Thank you, Scott. Yeah, push that front button, the silver button right in the front there. There you go. As long as the red light is on, you're live.
Okay, thank you. Well, good evening, Mayor, Council, and staff. I'm Catherine Cato, Director of Travel Ashland. I will be sharing highlights from Travel Ashland's quarterly report for the second quarter, October through December, provided in your council packet.
Catherine, could you
Yes.
get a little closer to that microphone?
Sure.
That will help, especially the people at home track along. Thank you.
Sure, yes. And I'm just going to figure out how to go to the next slide. Oh, dear. Sorry about that. Hold on.
And while that's loading up, would you prefer that council waits to the end to ask questions or ask questions as we move through?
Well, Jordan had asked that I share it for the packet, and then I prepared highlights that I'd like to share, and then perhaps we could go through questions after, if that's okay with
That sounds
everyone.
great.
Okay.
So we'll
great.
hold the questions till the end.
Yes, if that works for everyone, sure. Okay. There we go. So I will be sharing highlights, as I said, so we're talking about October through December, quarter two of the current fiscal year. It's important to note, as a destination organization, we leverage lodging tax grant dollars to promote our destination, diversify our visitor, and provide that furthest effective market outreach and destination management. As many of you know, we inspire visitors year-round to Ashland through our strategic marketing plan. We work with the tourism industry, media and partners on promotions and projects. So for the past 40 years, your investment has enabled Travel Ashland to generate lodging tax dollars. And visitors do pay their share. They pay 10% city lodging tax and 1.5 state tax. That totals 11.5, along with the food and beverage 5% tax. And I understand you folks just met with to have a strategic planning, and I understand livability is important to everyone, to us, to your strategic goals. Tourism truly is part of driving that livability and that quality of life. So these dollars in impact of visitation support our year-round workforce, our quality of life, fund essential services. And of the lodging tax generated, as you well know, but for folks at home, approximately 70% goes to the city's general fund and 30% are restricted for tourism dollars. That's very unique in the state of Oregon. I just want to mention a few trends and highlights from, again, this quarter. Our top markets that are visiting Ashland, Portland, Eugene, and Sacramento, drawing from the north, with November being up 8% in visitor days compared to 2023. We saw over $9 million in visitor spending in Ashland, with the top spending market being Portland. Ashland vacation rentals trended up an average of 10% year over year, with hotels down an average of 6% for the quarter. So statewide vacation rentals performed in 2024 outpaced 2023 and 2019. We are in current production of our visitor guide. It is a trusted resource and tool. It receives over 9,000 views per month. We do have an active campaign. It houses itineraries, stories, as well as indeed a year-round calendar. Ashland continues to receive accolades from Portland Monthly, Oregonian, and placing top 7th, Movie Maker Magazine, Best Places to Live and Work as a Movie Maker, as well as SOU garnering top 30 schools for film as well. So we're strategizing with the film industry of how we'll be deploying an industry strategy for recruitment in that sense. Just mentioning, because we're in legislative session right now, we're clear on our position to protect TLT dollars and testify for the tourism industry statewide to remain a competitive market and support continued investment in the private sector. So, for example, current bill, House Bill 2977, it poses to raise the state tax from 1.5 to 2.5. We feel that we're opposing that because we feel that we need to remain competitive where they could go elsewhere for groups and tours and conferences. Our accessibility work continues. Wheel the World. Participants have been secured here in Ashland. We have 11 partners. We're proceeding with the project. Ashland is one of 21 destinations in the state of Oregon. We as a whole are trying to have Oregon become that first destination certified state, and promotion is due to launch in July. You might have heard me mention that, but the project is coming along and site visits will be happening soon. We're strategizing with Parks and Rec to promote David's Chair, it's now in Lithia Park, as well as the Paragolfer at Oak Knoll Golf Course. We're also working on updating our assets to include accessible itineraries and wayfinding information on our site. So festivals and events, we support and promote community events year-round, including working with ACAA, Matt Hoffman, as they grow, the Chocolate Festival coming this weekend, OSF's 90th season kicking off, film festivals return in April, which is incredibly encouraging, promoting and helping Epic Ashland and REC, Rogue Events Collective, as they get started. They're really looking to be that race events and lining those up, so we're working to partner with them as well. And I do want to mention, in this current landscape, we as Travel Ashland, we serve as an anchor, and we provide a runway to create fertile ground for these new groups to grow. And we're meeting with them, listening to them, hearing as they get started as new nonprofits. Because really what ultimately this does, we're in alignment, we're working together, and this helps provide content for us to tell the story of Ashland in the many things going on. And the more that's happening, the more visitors we draw to Ashland. We are planning for the Ashland Mystery Fest coming in October. We launched 6 new authors, 8 returning. We're drawing authors from the UK. And in 2023, this event did grow and attract folks from 26 different states. Group tours and conferences, I'll just mention that we did secure ScienceWorks as the site for Bicycle Rides Northwest. That's a group of 300 coming in June. The Mural Fest will also coincide with that. And the River Management Society Conference is coming in April as well. In January, we hosted a fam trip. We had Oregon's primary international market. So we had international tourism operators here. Many times we find they come to Southern Oregon and they'll stay in Grants Pass. But having them come to Ashland, experience Ashland, we're able to, even 2 of the trips, we're actually as they plan, they're looking to have Ashland be their home base. And that's really by showing them around. In terms of the outdoors, Mount Ashland, winter season has been successful overall, despite power and outages and plumbing and such, but we're happy to know that they're above their 5-year average. In fact, this weekend, Oregon High School State Alpine Race Championships, welcoming over 350 racers with coaches, families. It's an exciting weekend to have Ashland on the map. Looking ahead to summer, we had many conversations in terms of promoting the best whitewater access just 40 minutes from Ashland. So we're strategizing on the local level with Media America, Travel Southern Oregon, and how we really position ourselves as that destination jumping off point for whitewater. As I mentioned, Rogue Events Collective, as they work to streamline the race events, we're continuing to promote the many outdoor events we have, from the hill climb to SOB. We are in support of the Madrone Ridge concept as an asset development and dispersing riders along with the needed connectivity for Ashland's mountain bike culture. In terms of our marketing strategy, I wanted to share our core objective is really to attract new visitors while re-engaging past travelers and by showcasing the diverse experiences Ashland has to offer. So our strategy is really built around positioning Ashland as a modern mountain town and leveraging targeted outreach through our personas and our interests. And this segmentation is further refined by using geography and keyword targeting. So really our multi-channel approach ensures we reach the right person at the right time through our various platforms. Social media-wise, we inspire and connect with our audience. Our strategy is really showcasing that natural beauty, posting on all 3 platforms with original content. And also what's proven successful is to interact with our audience. We reshare local businesses and locals and visitors. So our strategy, yes, it's Travel Ashland. We also have with the Ashland Chamber, but that's coordinated. So Travel Ashland is solely for that visitor audience and garnering followers from out of the area. Just a few highlights I wanted to mention. In terms of our website, you can see our site top pages, and #1 traffic source was organic search. Our top social posts span from Ashland Independent Film Festival to their return, to Mount Ashland and the Festival of Light, while Mystery Fest had strong engagement. Our paid media clicks were up 538 quarter over quarter, and the click-through rate was strong as well. And then lastly, on our YouTube, the 15-second winner video, we have a YouTube channel, and that garnered the highest rate. So for analytics, The report is provided to you in the council packet. We shared details of our past current campaigns, detailed website analytics, our social metrics, as well as our search campaigns and display analytics. So I know there was a plethora of information. What I want to do here is move down to visitation. Please hold on one second. There we go. And what are you seeing? Glossary of terms. Okay. So for visitation and industry stats, to share again a few highlights, I'm mindful of time to keep it tight. In terms of research, am I going here? In terms of research, we track on regional comparative trends of occupancy and average daily rate, TOT and food and beverage collection, and visitation data, including spending, length of stay, demographics, and geographics for the lodging. So if you look at hotel occupancy, which you might have already looked at the slide, I want to just mention, in terms of hotels, this is not, and including vacation rentals. October for hotels was down just 2%, November down 9%, and December down 8%. Although January, conversely, was a strong month, being up 12%. Vacation rentals were actually up consistently year over year each month. And on a statewide trend, we're seeing that vacation rentals are actually occupying about 70% of the lodging revenue share. For average daily rate, how much does an average daily rate of what you spend? Average daily rate sits between the local and statewide averages of vacation rentals skewing higher. And also our CCU Welcome Center. They actually welcomed 9% more visitors in 2024 versus 2025. So they served roughly over 29,000 folks. Looking at TOT, yet another element of what we measure and take a look at. The latest data available for July through September was 1.1 million, up over 2023. So at a 10% tax, this equates to 11 million in visitor spending just in lodging alone. For the food and beverage, July through September was indeed the highest food and beverage ever collected. And while inflation and rising costs are certainly a factor, it also shows strength and resiliency in our culinary industry. So we're excited to promote new restaurants coming, such as New and Cando and Good Juice. In terms of visitation overall, from the quarter, in looking at the quarter, October through December, we saw 111,000 visitor trips and 288,000 visitor days. These are the metrics we measure visitation by. It's not by the actual visitor, but it's by the visitor in days, which you have heard me say. An average length of stay of 2.6 days, which is skewing a little up, and all within 5% of 2023. Just a few other visitation highlights. In terms of comparison of trips, nearly 40% were new or first-time visitors. And if you look at our visitation during this quarter, 70% were out of state. Visitors defined as 50 miles or more, but then we take that and even slice it out of state. Our top 3 markets, as I mentioned, were Portland, Eugene, Sacramento, followed by Seattle and San Francisco. And in terms of demographics, it's easier to read probably on your computer, and hence why we provided it prior to the council. Our demographics show 62% of our visitors in this quarter were between the ages of 24 and 64. There was slight growth of our Hispanic visitor, up to 12%. And at this point in the snapshot, 46% had a bachelor degree or higher. When you look at spending, as I said, $9 million for this quarter, with an average of $184 per trip. Top categories were dining, nightlife, and lodging. And we did see strong local spending, with Portland being the top market. Lastly, I wanted to just share, I wanted to thank the Travel Ashland Advisory Committee and our new liaison, Councilor Nauer. Thank you for joining us, as well as being our Ashland Chamber Board liaison. And also Jordan Ricklin, as staff, serves on the committee as well. We have some new members, and again, this really serves as a sounding board and assessing each season to make good decisions going forward. So.
Questions? Counselor Bloom?
Yes, thank you for putting that together for us. I've got about 3 pages worth of questions and comments and suggestions, but I won't waste your time all at once. I'd like to start with this conversation around legislative advocacy, that you're opposing HB 2977. And I guess I'm curious, is this consistent with the City of Ashland? Is the City of Ashland opposing this bill or supporting it?
I'm not sure. I know we've had conversations when we met with the mayor as towards a different bill, but as far as the 1.5 to 2.5. So this is Travel Ashland standing as our opposition.
Okay, I understand that. Thank you. I just think it's important that we're consistent and that Travel Ashland is in alignment with the City of Ashland.
Well, we, being a tourism destination organization, it's important to advocate for tourism. That is our role inherently. One of the reasons behind that decision to oppose that, ODFW has about 6 funding sources. If you take that funding source for tourism from 1.5 to 2.5 and split it, tourism really has that one source. So specifically for that bill from 1.5 to 2.5, if you rate us a state tax and you're having 600 guests for groups, tours, and conferences here, it makes us less competitive for a market. And I'll pause there, but it's a conversation we can have more. I know I think there's differences of opinion. We work closely with Senator Golden and Representative Marsh, and they hold their opinions as they navigate through the legislative session as well, but we feel it is our job to keep them informed. I serve on a statewide Oregon Destination Association, and along with Travel Oregon and ORLA. So we are in alignment in the tourism sphere, but I look forward to having more conversation about where, you say the City of Ashland, but then it's is there a collective position on that bill, or is it made up of individual perspectives?
Sure, and I appreciate that, and I understand your perspective, and this isn't necessarily about that particular bill and where
Sure.
the funding is being allocated. This is, I think, a broader conversation that it is important that our DMO that we fund is in alignment with the city's objectives and what kind of legislative advocacy we are engaged with. That's the point I want to make.
Other questions? Counselor Hanson?
Thank you, Catherine. As always, the presentation has lots of data, and I wish I could look at it and say, unilaterally, like everything's up for Ashland, but I see that there's a lot of up marks in this report, and I know weather and other factors come into how things are going year to year, but I see the efforts being made, and I appreciate it. And the new assets, the new pictures, of course, are always interesting to me. And we slid right past the ad where we're advertising specifically to mountain bikers. It says, our dirt is good. Come check out our trails. And certainly on the streets, I see more and more destination mountain bikers because I think I know every mountain biker in Ashland at this point. And it's like, who are you? Oh, you look
They
nice.
know you.
Where are you from? So it's great to see. It's great to see us thriving and our businesses up. I really don't have any questions other than just thank you, and I think the investment is it's imperative that we keep our foot on the gas here, and I like what you're doing with the outdoor rec community, and I love what we experienced last year with our arts and entertainment. So thank you.
Thank you.
Counselor Dale?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I've got a few questions too. Thank you, Catherine. I appreciate it. And yes, there's, as Councilor Hanson said, there's plenty of data there, a lot. The first thing I'd like to ask is, if I were to ask you, let me preface by saying I didn't see a lot of data from local businesses and what they think, and have we surveyed those? I would love to see what they think is going on, but since we don't have that, let me ask you this. Can you look at this data and tell us a story? What are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? What are the misses? What are the hits? Where do we go from here? Let's take this data. If you took this data, where would you take this data and use it? Like, how are we going to apply it? What do you think?
I think we have a strong platform. We survived the pandemic. And going back to my comment about creating fertile ground, we've kept those buckets full in terms of this work and these analytics, and this engagement is showing a younger traveler. They're doing more We're not just solely reliant on OSF, which we were, say, 20 years ago. So we've diversified and planted roots for diversification of our visitor. So these analytics show engagement as well as creating, like I said, fertile ground for new folks. There's a huge momentum. Some folks moved here 4 or 5 years ago, and we're regaining. Portland is still recovering. The story I feel it tells is our resilience and the fact that tourism is an economic driver for our town, and we need to continue to invest in it. Does that mean directly to us? No, not necessarily. It just means continued investment in the downtown and to our restaurants and to our hoteliers and to our retailers. And we do survey and have input from downtown and our not only downtown, but as well as our stakeholders. That's like a tip of a big story I could tell.
Thank you. May I follow up on that?
Yes.
Thank you. And Catherine, thank you. You had mentioned a younger demographic, which 100% agree with. And I think that we had chatted last year about using more digital connectivity, apps, a digital calendar, so forth. And I was curious if we had moved forward towards implementing. I know that I was looking back through our minutes from last year, and it was noted, I think Sabrina had said that there was a calendar that's going on our new website, or was at the time, and it's cool. I was actually just looking at it, and I don't think that's my stop number one for entertainment and nightlife is the local government website. But I do think that it's something when I was Googling before I came here, I said things to do Ashland, Oregon with, and I did it in 3 or 4 different browsers just to see, and I really would have loved to have seen Travel Ashland pop up at least in that first 5-10 with a calendar like smack dab where they can just click go. Is that something that's still on the timeline, the agenda to create as far as like events?
And first I'll say, because you're not a visitor, we're not targeting a local.
But I use a VPN. Never mind.
Okay.
I look like an out-of-towner when
You
I
use
search.
something to sleuth in
Use
there, I
hers
get
from
that.
you.
Okay. In terms of investing in an app is not, we have not yet invested in an app. Is that the sole answer? And I hear you want the digital, you want tech right in the hands of these younger visitors. What we have invested in is travelashland.com, our mobile device, the way it serves up, as well as our YouTube channel. So we're in front, and as well as our social. So there is an app, and that may not be the entirety of the answer for how we serve it. A calendar. I know we've spoken a lot about different calendars. It is a full-time job to have one person do all entirety of a calendar. We have an events calendar. It houses events that are geared towards the view of a visitor. But we're also collaborating and talking about how we then can solve this problem, not problem, but this challenge for a calendar and how we can move forward. We have a calendar. We have a community events calendar on Ashland Chamber. We also have it on travelashland.com. I'm not sure if there's one magical one that's going to encompass every single thing in Ashland. As you can see, even Rogue Events Collective, they're housing a number. They're doing a really good job, actually, of all the recreational events, bringing that together under one roof. So we're then utilizing that. So, I think we have some building blocks that could put us there. But no, we have not necessarily invested in the app. We can certainly take a look at it, but we've also found that having a mobile device that functions correctly is also quite viable too.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Nauer.
Thank you. It can be hard to draw conclusions, I think, from data like this. I mean, strict correlations between what we're seeing as far as clicks and what we're seeing as far as numbers of visitors that are showing up. Is that fair? I think we can get inference. I think we can get a good idea, but only at the aggregate level can we say whether or not we're having an impact positively or negatively. Is that a fair statement?
Well, we've actually...
Or can you go deeper and actually, let me just finish up the thought.
Sure.
Can you go deeper and actually just target the age demographic that you're talking about? Because one of the things that I was looking for in here, and I could pull it together from all of your information, was which events were targeted into which areas, which demographic from an age. This is, OSF is going to probably mostly a specific demographic. Mountain biking is going to go to a specific demographic. And then as we look at who our visitors actually are, we can draw inference as to whether or not we're getting the right messages out there in order to drive an overall increase in Ashland. Is that a fair statement to make, or am I not reading your data right?
I think you're reading the data correctly, but the inference, a couple things. We, in terms of segmenting our audience through personas or the interests or the seasonality, we have a very targeted marketing approach. What you're speaking about is attribution. Who saw this ad and who came to Ashland, if I understand your question correctly? Like, how does that translate?
Can we tease that out? Yes.
So what we've done is actually increase our investment in research to gain attribution data. So when we have a campaign launched, but it takes a while to, if you say, like, so we started in September. So when next time I come to share with you in person or share our next quarterly report, I'll have more attribution data in terms of folks who saw the ad or engaged with our website or our social. We saw that this is how many folks came that saw our ad, and this is what they spent. So it's never going to be necessarily 100% return on investment, but the attribution data will help us, as is spending data that can help. So we're actually gathering the data that can help tell that story more clearly.
Good, and that's what I would be, excuse me, hoping to see out there, because there's an old marketing saying that half of marketing money is wasted, and we just wish we knew which half. So, are we getting the return that we're hoping for this investment and the demographic spread that we would like to see visiting Ashland? We can infer it. If the data will allow us to go deeper than inference, great. I'd like to see that starting to be pulled together. That would be great. Thank you.
Councillor Duquesne.
Actually, my question was answered, and I can just email Catherine later.
Please.
Councillor Bloom.
Yeah, thank you. So the next point that is a point of concern for me is looking at hotels versus vacation rentals. So year over year, Ashland hotels are down 8%, vacation rentals are up 11%, but I thought that it was interesting that the ADR, the average daily rate for hotels, is about $100 less than vacation rentals. So I'm curious what your strategy and due to funding by extension, the Chamber's strategy is in addressing that and helping our hotels climb back up to a level that they should be, especially considering that we're having conversations up here around vacation rentals, broadly speaking, and the desire to have more rental housing, long-term rental housing available.
Sure. We promote all lodging. So it's not as if we're sitting over in a vacation rental camp, just, right, we're not pushing that. In terms of promoting all lodging, that is, and please note, I want to make sure you saw that, is the fact that the hotel data we have is through the STAR report, and that actually represents 6 properties that report in. It's not the entire swath of all the hotels, right? So it's about a third of the total rooms. My point is, it's a sample of that, and it does ebb and flow. Conversely, speaking with Jacksonville, their hotels were up and their vacation rentals were down. So there really is an ebb and flow to that. We're mindful of that in promoting. We promote Ashland, and someone who's going to come to Ashland isn't necessarily the value seeker. They have Marriott points, or they're looking for a chain. They're looking for a unique experience. We have very close relationships, and that's why we build these itineraries to say, here's our boutique hotels, and yes, we have the B&Bs that are still, well, from Winchester Inn to Ashland Creek Inn, right? And it's really the itinerary building is in the story we tell to invite people. So when you're inviting families or multi-generational people to travel here too, where they stay and how they stay, there's only so much control we have over their behavior and their choices. But by all means, we're constantly encouraging folks, whether it's to drive here and stay, whether it's that weekend or the longer term stays as well. I hope that answers your question, but we're promoting all of lodging. I mean, vacation rental, there's a certain trend, there's only so much control we have over certain trends. But we've done studies on our highway hotels versus the walkability in downtown. There's still that inherent walkability of downtown, and we're quite closely with our hoteliers downtown as well.
I appreciate that, but I think it's not getting to the point of what I'm trying to get to, and it goes to what Councilor Dale was saying, is that what kind of outreach are we doing to businesses? We clearly have a gap in the industry as it relates to standard hotels, right? And I get it, it's a snapshot, I totally understand that. But I guess I think that it's important that we start thinking a little bit more strategically about, we understand that we have a sector that is maybe struggling a little bit. Let's do some outreach and find out what we can do as a city, what the chamber can do, and what Travel Ashland can do to help bring them back up.
That's
We
what-
want everybody to be healthy. Right, and it's not a totality of all lodging. It's we have one that's dipping below, and so maybe we should give it a little bit more attention.
And that is inherently what we do every day, to be thoroughly honest with you. Yeah.
Counselor Nauer.
Just a quick follow-up on that. I went onto the Travel Ashland site before coming here to get ready for this, and pulled up the map for dining, and it did not represent the full view of dining possibilities within the downtown space.
You said the map.
The map.
So the map is generated by Google, and we are actually on our site. Then we're having issue with the map, to be thoroughly honest with you, and we're actually auditing our website to revise that map in the bottom. I'm sorry to interrupt. I'll let you continue.
No, that's okay. You are actually answering my question, because I was bothered by the fact that I know that there are a number of places that I frequent that I didn't see there, and they're quite good. So I was wondering how they were getting picked to be put on that map or not. And you're saying they're not being picked. It's simply what Google is serving you up at the moment.
Right, which is not acceptable in our way, so we're changing the way that it serves it up. So, for instance, Plaza Inn was not showing up on the hotel map. Why? Bard's was.
Right.
So we're actually we're looking at the granular level of that map and working with Project A, the host site, to say, why is Google grabbing a certain category and not another one? So we're doing an overhaul of our website, to be thoroughly honest with you.
So as we head into what I'll call high season, spring and heading into summer, what's your timeline for being able to improve that map, which would just be a quick reference that I think that someone would use and take their first pick?
Within the next month, we're revising our content.
Okay. Thank you.
Counselor Dale.
Thank you, Mayor. And thanks, Catherine. I wanted to go back to what I had said previously, and I understand how much work it goes into doing an app, and I understand that may not be the solution. I tend to, as evidenced from 5 minutes ago, I can go full tech nerd in a hurry real quick. So this is really interesting to me. And you had said something that was, I found fascinating and true, which is it knows where you are, basically. And you had said something along the lines of, well, it knew you were local, so it didn't serve something up, and made a comment of looking, but that was somewhere else. But does the algorithm, or however you guys are setting the optimization up, what I'm interested in is, I understand we're marketing to the folks who have said, where am I looking to go? I want to do a road trip. Okay, Ashland, because I saw this. Now, how do we serve up the folks that are, we're on a major corridor here, and they're on a road trip going up to Portland or Seattle or wherever, and it's getting near the end of the day, they're tired driving, they pull off on exit 14 or 19, and it's like, where to go, where to eat, where to stay, what to do right now? Is that now the phone knows that they're in Ashland, and they search, is there any kind of optimization that goes, yep, like right now, I just want to hear.
Yes, I mean, in terms of our search campaigns, anytime anyone searches, but the origin of where they came from isn't local, so that's, right?
Yeah, but the phone's going to know it's a local, never mind. Yeah, sorry, I was going down the road again.
No, but it's a visit. Let's say they come from San Francisco.
Right.
So we know that the ISP address of that phone is from San Francisco. It's not local, right? So in terms of our search campaigns, and I can perhaps not
We'll chat.
tonight.
Yeah, no problem.
But
it's okay.
being a good steward of our brand,
Yeah.
when you're searching for those elements, that's what our search campaign and why we strategize the way we do. We also try not to compete with local businesses for their keywords that they're also paying for, if that helps too.
Okay, fair. Thank you.
Counselor Duquesne.
Thank you, Mayor. I had a quick question. I wanted to piggyback on Councilor Nauer, and also what was brought up about the calendar events, or anyone on the site has to be a member of the chamber, correct?
Not Travel Ashland.
Not Travel Ashland.
No.
Everybody, every restaurant, every business.
We tell the story of all of Ashland. So we have a link to our membership that is on ashlandchamber.com, but no, we do not have to be a member necessarily to be mentioned on the website.
Okay, that's good to know.
Of course, I
Thank
mean,
you.
we're promoting everyone. If you want to go to a
Good.
llama farm or wherever we're going to go, like, you don't have to be a member because we need to tell the entirety of the story of our
The
destination,
story.
we feel.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
Counselor Bloom?
Yeah, last one, I promise. So not really a question, just kind of a highlight. So we did have our retreat, strategic planning retreat for both budget, and also we did some fun little visioning exercises. And the takeaway from that was that Ashland skews wealthier and older. There is an income gap, but we really have a desire to attract younger families to this area. And so with that in mind, well, that one is one element. The other element is we want year-round travel. We want year-round events, attractions. I'm sure you would love that as well. That makes everybody happier. And of course, the business is in a much better position. So keeping that in mind, I would just request moving forward over the next year that there is a focus on attracting families. So whether it's hooking up with influencers, parent influencers, parent blogs, websites to get them, advertising on those, but getting them engaged and coming to Ashland to help out, developing year-round programs. I know we have the Festival of Light. I think it'd be really great to have a children's Christmas festival or winter festival downtown. I think that there's a lot of opportunities where we could be thinking outside the box to attract the type of visitors that we want, those being younger families, because we know that when people come to Ashland and they experience what they experience, there's a good chance that they're going to move here. And I think that it is a goal of the city to have more young families moving into Ashland.
If I may respond,
Yes,
by all means,
absolutely.
we thoroughly agree. I didn't land on it too long, but for Festival of Light, what we'd like to do is expand it into more of a winter fest for families. You have a very intense, or not intense, but an audience of, let's say, nearly 10,000 people as soon as those lights go on, right down in the plaza. So our vision is to expand. We already have the permit for the plaza that night. So from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., it becomes more of a winter fest, right, to attract. And so that's just one part of an event. I would also say embedded in our brand architecture and platform is Destination Family. So we market directly to families with itineraries. We also invested with Merrill's on the Move. They're from Idaho. So we've actually had a number of different families for photo shoots. And as well, we thoroughly agree with you. And that's why relationships like with new groups that are also having the same intent to welcome families and create those assets and build upon those assets. We definitely are in alignment with that.
Great. Thank you so much for taking my questions. At least I can speak for myself. I really
course.
do appreciate it. And be bold, think bigger. One day Festival of Light is great. What about a week-long festival? Let's really think outside the box and see what we can do to bring some vibrancy back to our community.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Catherine.
Okay.
It's always
Thank you
great to
very
see
much.
you all and good to see the numbers.
Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
So we've now reached the time this evening for the public forum. Alyssa, do we have signups for public forum? Just these couple here? Okay, we have 2 people who have signed up for public forum. The way this works is that you will come up to the microphone to your left. You'll have 3 minutes, and then Alyssa will give you a single chime when you have 20 seconds left. Want to give them a sample? And when your time is up, she'll give you a double chime. At that point, please finish the sentence you're on. Go ahead. Please finish the sentence that you're on so that we can move on to the next person who has come to speak with us this evening. So we have 2 speakers. The first one is Michael, and the second one is Noah Wertheiser. And so if you can take that microphone over there in the corner, and then Noah, go ahead and get in line behind him. Thank you. And please tell us your name and the city in which you reside. Thank you.
It's Michael, and I'm homeless, and I'm not going to mention any other names of people or businesses here, so I think Michael's good enough. And I didn't finish it, so the other half will have to be next week. This written this afternoon is on 2 subjects. One, I believe It's important for you to sometimes hear a little of what occurs in the lives of homeless people. In this case, how they, at least this one, can be taken advantage of. The homeless people's quality of character, first and foremost, will vary greatly, as will their experience, as it will with the unhomeless. Two of the interactions here is with second such subjects. One of the interactions here is with someone who works for your city. You need to wait till the last page, and works out of this building complex. Last page next 2 weeks. And it occurred this morning. Sorry, I'm tired. Even though I'm homeless for a lengthy time and have physical degenerative spinal disability, including the cervix causing chronic headaches, presently living out of a mid-sized vehicle, I'm still instinctually driven to do what I was born to do: help while making a genuine human bond, at least wishfully. Primarily with younger people with time in front of them and not yet learned into the world, wanting them to see it more clearly for the purpose of becoming more responsible and mature. Originally in their young 20s, a person I have known for over 8 years, myself already long homeless, both then living on the eastern side of Cascade Range, helping the best I could, hands-on physically and materially, with moving, fixing the car, etc., plus being a counselor when they asked, sometimes in desperation. I mention Ashland many times as a place to live, even if temporarily, if fleeing what we both considered bad energy, Central Oregon. Not that any place is perfect. This person moved for a while to the big city to the north with my very, very necessary help, moved back to Central Oregon for a short time, then giving me some shockingly terrible demands, which would require my small inheritance I just happened to mention in one of our open chit-chats. My father
Michael,
was...
if you can finish that sentence, I apologize for interrupting, but your time is up.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. I thought it was 3 minutes.
It was 3 minutes.
Oh, it was?
Yes.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I'm here to speak in opposition. Oh, my name is Noah Wertheiser. I live here in Ashland. Thank you. Here to speak in opposition to the proposal from the 18th to lower the threshold for expulsion from the enhanced law enforcement area from convictions to charges only. This is not a minor procedural change. I understand Chief O'Mara's concerns. The backlog does make it hard to reach convictions, leaving officers dealing with the same individuals repeatedly, but expelling them doesn't stop the bad behavior, it just moves it. It isn't deterrence, it's displacement. And when the problem reappears elsewhere, do we just declare another enhanced law enforcement area? If a person can be banned from public spaces before they've been convicted of a crime, we're endorsing punishment without due process. When we punish people, particularly those experiencing homelessness, further into the margins, we're not solving any underlying problems. I trust our current law enforcement team, but laws should never assume that they will only be applied by good actors. History and precedent in Portland, Seattle, and Eugene shows that unchecked power to expel is easily misused. One bad hire, one slip of personal bias, and it becomes a tool for discrimination. If we want a safer Ashland, we have to invest in the proven solutions to crime, including housing and shelter, mental and behavioral health care, and informed resource navigation. Expanding a policy that leans towards social control instead of public safety is the wrong path. So please reject this and other proposals similar and focus on real crime prevention. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselors, we are about to start a public hearing that's going to take a significant amount of this evening, so let's take a 5-minute break now. Please be back in your seats at 7:25.
You know, I was at
Here we go.
We are now moving forward with the public hearing. We are here this evening to hear the appeal, number PA Appeal-2025-00020 of Planning Action PA T2 2024-00054, a request for outline plan approval for Kestrel Park Phase 3, a performance standards option PSO subdivision, site design review, variance to driveway width, and tree removal permit request within the North Mountain Neighborhood Plan area. The public hearing is now open for planning action number PA-Appeal-2025-00020, an appeal on the record of the Planning Commission's approval of a request for outline plan approval for a performance standards option PSO subdivision, a request for residential site design review approval, a request for a variance to driveway width, and a tree removal permit. This is an appeal on the record of a type 2 land use procedure. It is a quasi-judicial land use proceeding and requires the observance of certain procedural formalities. The council must take a few moments to cover some preliminary matters and required statements. Generally, the following procedure will be used in this hearing: preliminary matters and required statements, staff report, appellant's oral arguments, applicant's oral arguments by others entitled to participate. Parties' oral argument. For an appeal on the record, only those parties that participated orally or by written testimony and submitted written argument at least 10 days in advance of this meeting may speak. In this case, those are the applicant, the appellant, which includes Vida Taylor and 9 others who signed the application for appeal. In addition, we have a list of those who have submitted written testimony and who are entitled to participate. Advice from legal counsel and staff. Then we will close the public hearing and have council deliberation and decision. If you are approved to participate in this hearing, including challenges for bias, prejudgment, or conflict of interest, you must complete the yellow speaker request form located on the table outside the room and deliver them to the city recorder. Please do so immediately. Any challenges will be addressed after the reading of the required statements. The applicant and appellants are each allowed a total of 10 minutes. Those individuals who have filed written arguments will be allowed 3 minutes to summarize their written arguments to the City Council. When recognized by the presiding officer, please come forward to the podium, give your name, and summarize your arguments. Councilors may ask questions of staff and participants without affecting time limits. And councilors, we will have questions at the end of the 10-minute presentation for each. Do any members of the council wish to abstain, declare a conflict of interest, or report any ex parte contact in this matter? Councilor Nauer.
Mayor, I have to just acknowledge that I was serving on Planning Commission when this first came before that body and participated in the decision that took place then. The information that I see being presented today does not appear to me to include anything other than what was on the record and is in the minutes. And as such, I did not plan to recuse myself because there has been no ex parte contact since that meeting anyway.
Thank you. Councilor Kaplan.
Yes, thanks, Mayor. I received an email on February 19th from Kathy Bowen-Jones informing me of the neighbor's appeal on 8 points and asking to meet on the property. I did not do so. And I don't consider this one-way email communication and suggestion compromises my ability to consider the merits of this appeal on the record. So I don't feel uncomfortable.
Councilor Duquesne.
Thank you, Mayor. I too received an email, the same email. I have not prejudiced this application, and I am not prejudiced or biased by my prior contacts or involvement. I will make this decision based solely on the application of the relevant criteria and standards to the facts and evidence in the records of this proceeding.
All right. Any person has the right to rebut the substance of the evidence or information disclosed. Please present your rebuttal evidence on the substance of any ex parte contacts during the normal time allowed for testimony, which has been established for this proceeding. Please reduce any bias, conflict of interest, and prejudgment challenges to writing with supporting evidence and provide these to the city recorder. This appeal on the record will be processed in the record according to AMC 18.5.1.060.1. The 8 assignments of error for the appeal are summarized as such. That the standards provided in AMC 18.3.5.030.c are not met with regard to density, building design, building orientation, and concerns about increased traffic. That the standards provided at AMC 18.3.5.100.c.3 are not met with regards to the number of units taking vehicular access from an extension of existing alleys. The third appeal issue restates the concern that the standards provided at AMC 18.3.5.030.c are not met with regard to building design and parking being in front of the buildings. That the standard provided at AMC 18.3.9.040 are not met with regards to police and fire protection and adequate transportation. That the standards provided at AMC 18.5.2.050.c are not met with regard to density, traffic, and evacuation. That the standards provided at AMC 18.3.5.0.100.a are not met with regards to building orientation, building design, parking, and fire protection. That the standards provided at AMC 18.4.4.070 are not met in terms of lot coverage, building design, views, and generally the development of multifamily housing. The 8th appeal issue does not include a code citation, but raises concerns with fire safety and evacuation. This appeal on the record is limited to these 8 grounds for appeal, which were clearly and distinctly identified in the appeal request. As provided in AMC 18.5.1.060.1.5 I.5.b, in their review, the council shall not re-examine issues of fact and shall limit its review to determining whether there is substantial evidence to support the findings of the Planning Commission or to determining if errors in law were committed by the Commission. Review shall, in any event, be limited to those issues clearly and distinctly set forth in the notice of appeal. City Recorder, do we have any written challenges to members of this hearing body for bias, prejudgment, or conflict of interest?
No.
Thank you. At this time, I call for the planning staff to present the proposal.
Thank you, Mayor Graham. Brandon Goldman, Director of Community Development. Before you tonight, as you mentioned, is a planning action for Phase 3 of the Kestrel subdivision. It is an appeal of a Planning Commission decision. The Planning Commission approved the application on December 10th of 2025, and the Planning Commission, in that approval of Planning Action T2-2024-00054, approved the outline plan for the Performance Standard subdivision, the residential site review, design review for the proposed development, approved a variance for driveway width, and approved a tree removal permit to allow the site to develop as proposed. The Planning Commission further adopted findings and conclusions of law on January 14th of this year. Following the adoption of findings, notice was sent to the neighborhood and those parties of record that had provided testimony at the Planning Commission, and we received through the Planning Department a timely appeal of the Planning Commission's decision, titled Planning Action Appeal -2025-00020, challenging the approval of the Planning Commission. Under Ashland's Land Use Code, as the mayor mentioned, the City Council is the final decision maker for the city on this appeal. As noted, it is an on-the-record appeal, and the City Council's review is not a new hearing allowing new evidence to be submitted, but rather an assessment of whether the Planning Commission made an error based on the evidence presented in the original record. I did need to note that letters from non-participants on the record were received, and the packet that is presented to the council includes all the records received, but includes specifically 3 letters that were received by the Planning Department on February 17th and 20th from individuals that had not previously participated in the Planning Commission hearing. And so while these letters were received and included in the packet materials, they should not be considered part of the official record of the appeal. And those were received from Kenneth Devaney, Jared Crawford, and Karen Hemmen. Specifically under the Oregon Revised Statutes 197-763, an on-the-record appeal is strictly limited to to the evidence and testimony presented during the original hearing before the Planning Commission. And as those 3 individual letters did not submit comments during the initial hearing, their letters would constitute new evidence which can't be considered as part of the council's review. And further, as the mayor had noted, any individual here this evening that have requested to provide testimony and did not both participate in the Planning Commission review and subsequently submit written testimony relating to this appeal are not parties of record on the appeal and would not be permitted to provide new evidence in the form of their testimony. I wanted to note that sitting next to me is Senior Planner Aaron Anderson, and he will provide an overview of the project. And following his presentation, the applicant and the appellant will both have an opportunity to respond. Then the council will be in the position of making a decision whether there is substantial evidence in the existing record supporting the Planning Commission's decision, or alternatively, if the Planning Commission committed legal errors in their decision-making process. And as noted, the appeal is limited to the 8 specific issues raised by the appellants, and the council will deliberate on that existing record and legal standards. Lastly, I wanted to note that the Planning Commission, as I stated, approved findings and conclusions of law at their January 14th meeting. Those were included in your packet, and they do comprehensively outline each criterion of approval that they found the criteria were met, either as proposed or with the imposed conditions of approval. And these findings are included in the council's packet. Should the council take the option of affirming the Planning Commission's findings as their own to uphold the decision, you could do so at this evening's meeting. In the event that the council felt that there were errors that needed correction, you would have to adopt new findings, which would come back to you at your subsequent meeting. I did want to note that there is under ORS 227-178, a 120-day rule by which all land use applications decisions have to be made by municipalities or counties within the state. And as such, the city is required to process this application to its conclusion by March 18th. So this planning approval shot clock limits the time available for review and decision-making in order to afford applicants a clear path for decision-making by a city. So I bring this up because there had been some comments received about requesting it be remanded to the Planning Commission. Given the March 18th deadline, the council must either affirm, modify, or overturn the Planning Commission's decision within this existing appeal process. And with that, I'll turn it over to Aaron to give you a little background on the area and the project.
Thank you, Brandon. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Aaron Anderson, and I'm a Senior Planner in the Community Development Department. The presentation that I'll be giving you is an abbreviated PowerPoint of what was presented to the Planning Commission on December 10th. This is the general location of the subject property, which is in the North Mountain neighborhood. This slide shows the zoning for the North Mountain neighborhood, and the subject property is outlined here in the center of the project. It should be noted that the zoning is North Mountain multifamily. The application was originally for more lots, which is why you see the strikeout here. As detailed in the council communication, the day before the hearing, the portion of the project known as Area 7 was removed from consideration, changing the scope of what was being reviewed and approved. This is an aerial image of the area. And with my laser pointer here, this is consists of phase 1 of the Kestrel Park subdivision, and the cottage housing development over here was phase 2. And this is the subject property, which is the nature of tonight's application. This is the preliminary plat. The areas were known as areas 4, 5, 6, and 7 from previous approvals, and that's how they are characterized in this application. The site plan from KDA, pardon me, from yeah, no, the architecture firm, I'm sorry. Kissler Small and White, pardon me, shows the proposed structures. This area is the multifamily development in Area 6, and these homes, which are shared wall, single family, are also subject to site design review. This is the area that Area 7 was subject to, and again, that was removed from consideration the day before the project went to the Planning Commission. The application included comprehensive civil plans. This sheet here showing the proposed improvements connecting Nandina and Patton Lane with those areas, and showing all of the civil improvements, including sidewalks, water, sewer, and storm drain. This is a small sampling of the architectural renderings that were included with the application. Of note, again, these are the shared wall single families, which do require site design review. And then this is a rendering of Area 6, which is the main multifamily element to the application. And this again shows Area 6 from a slightly couple different angles. The application also included a request for a variance to driveway width. Part of the reason for this is that the standard for the North Mountain neighborhood requires 9 feet for single-family homes and 12 foot for shared access. Part of the conflict with this was that the public works minimum is a 12-foot width, so it sort of forced the hand for the requirement for a variance. This shows the proposed driveways that were to get that variance. 2 of them were part of Area 7, so they aren't a matter of consideration, and the shared driveways for 18 feet were proposed for Area 4 and these 2 areas in Area 5. And then the appeal issues, again, there are 8 of them. I won't restate them all here individually as they were called out at the beginning, and I'm more than happy to take any questions that you want. I also have slides with all of the relevant approval criteria if we need to discuss any of them in detail.
Questions for staff? Okay. Thank you. Ms. Vita Taylor, would you and your co-applicants please come forward to the podium, state your name, and summarize your appeal arguments? You will have a total of 10 minutes, and that is inside this fence, the little gate here. Yes. Yep. Go ahead and come all the way in. All presentations will be made from that table. And there's a third chair, I believe.
We'll be doing that, right?
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
And if you could just make sure that you get in nice and close to the microphone, whoever is speaking, that will allow us to hear you better.
Sure. You hear me okay?
Yes, thank you. Okay, go ahead, and when you start, it'll start your 10 minutes.
All right. Good evening. I'm Vita Taylor. I'm a resident of Julian Square Townhouses, and I'm here representing over 200 people who have signed petitions regarding this development, Kestrel Park 3. We think that there are concerns about the density of the development, which includes 4 apartment buildings on less than 2 acres, 2 of which will depend upon a narrow alley for entrance and egress. These alleys are our only entrance, allowing us access to our driveways and our garages. We find there are many code violations in the buildings: access to roads, lack of open space, and lack of adequate parking, leading to increased fire danger in an area already high in fire danger. We're less than a mile from where the Almeda fire started. We have the same kind of terrain. We feel there are inadequate roads and alleys for swift evacuation of the area in case of a fire. We love our neighborhood. We expect to have new neighbors. We want them to enjoy living here too. We do not think this design adequately responds to the transportation needs of people without cars and people who have average-sized vehicles. In addition, the crowding of dark buildings surrounded by concrete will not allow for air circulation in an area that's already overheated. We're asking for reconsideration of the Planning Commission's approval of this proposed development. Please do not allow this development to proceed as designed. We just ask the Planning Commission to reconsider the high potential for fire in this area and the density. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Daniel DeRue. I reside at Plum Ridge Drive in Ashland. And we, the residents around the Kestrel Park development, as well as Mountain Meadows Board, have submitted our request for an appeal to the proposed Kestrel Park development based on the proposal not meeting the code and for the threat of wildfire evacuation gridlock. Specifically, City Code 18.3.5.030 states that, get this, click this. How do you make it come on?
Alyssa, let's make sure we pause their time to deal with the technical issues.
Thank you. There we go.
Okay.
Just hit right here.
Okay. All right, yeah, thank you. Specifically, we contend the proposal does not, City Code 18.3.5.030 states that the proposal should demonstrate conformity to general design regulations of the North Mountain Neighborhood Plan, including density, transportation, and building design orientation. We contend that it does not. In that, 1, density is reaching 46 units. 8 units are 360 square foot units. 8 are 603 square foot apartments, with the possibility of adding 10 more ADUs. Julian Square Alley, which is at the top, very top of this diagram, where am I here? Julian Square Alley is effectively a one-way alley and often requires backing up and turning around to get out. This is the most challenging, restrictive, and obstructive location for a dense population. Transportation. North Mountain has no transportation and relies on automobiles to reach downtowns or shop. There's very few bicyclists in our age. Design. All 16 units in Area 6 will be 26 feet in height, according to the renderings here on sheet 16. Go to, do I get out of this now?
No, I haven't worked with machines, so no. She's gonna help.
Might be easier to look here. Was there a particular, is that number 2?
Number 2, yeah. Magic. All 16 units in the Area 6 will be 26 feet in height, according to the renderings here on sheet 16. At the top of the hill, this height will completely obstruct the views of the surrounding residences, while larger homes are planned for the lower hillside. When most of the owners purchased our residences, it was with the understanding that Phase 3 would be approximately 24 single-story family homes. We were assured that the development planned to locate the smaller units at the lower end of the property, not in this plan. This plan greatly impacts the values of the existing structures because the valley view we invested in will be replaced by apartment buildings. City Code 18.3.5.100 states that the primary elevation is oriented towards the street and that excessive repetition of identical floor plans and elevations shall be discouraged. We contend that the 4 units of Lot 38, I gotta get.
Okay, so.
Get rid of that one. We're going to 3.
Yeah. Thank you. We contend that the 4 units of Lot 38 do not comply as they are clearly oriented with the fronts on the alley.
That's the topmost of the double unit.
Yeah, the two up here.
Facing the alley.
The fronts of the buildings face the alleys, which they're supposed to face a street, according to the code. The alley cross-section is a 20-foot wide right-of-way which contains a 12-foot wide improved alley and a 4-foot planted or gravel strip or shoulder. So these are not streets, these are alleys. They're 12-foot wide alleys. The fronts, as described in the North Mountain Neighborhood Plan, have covered porches, gables, pillars, eaves, and decks, which these clearly have. Parking is in the back. The units of Lot 37 and 38 are identical and repetitive, as are the units of 39 and 40, with only some slight changes in the siding. Now I need to go to slide 4. Thank you. City Code 18.3.9.040A3 refers to fire protection and adequate transportation. We contend that there is no transportation. Fire protection is a big issue considering that the KDL report expects gridlock within 10 to 15 minutes after evacuation orders are issued. The level of congestion is already life-threatening, but adding more density is throwing fuel on the fire, so to speak. For hundreds of residents of the Kestrel neighborhood, there are only 2 exits onto North Mountain. North Mountain is also the designated route for the Riverwalk, Village Green, and East Hersey neighborhoods, with 1 exit. This route will be shut down, and the buses that will be trying to evacuate Mountain Meadows and Skylark will not be able to move. We are not anti-development, but we feel that over the years, the Kestrel Park design has morphed into an unacceptable, unappealing, unsafe design. Not all lots are safe for high-density building. These are not only the concerns of a few neighbors, but our views are echoed by the 200-plus residents of Mountain Meadows who signed the submitted statement. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members. My name is Mark Abell. I live at 902 Patton Lane. Thank you for your service to our community. It's my hope that you will listen to this appeal with your hearts as well as with your minds. Before I begin, I want to assure you that this appeal is not a case of NIMBY, meaning not in my backyard. All who have purchased residence in the area surrounding the Kestrel property know that someday the hillside would be developed. It is the density and the aspects of design that are concerning. The plans of the North Mountain neighborhood were drawn up decades ago when high-density infill seemed like a good idea. However, in today's real world, climate change, this density is now a serious safety issue. In that context, we see that the developer has maxed out his density allowance. The emergency evacuation of neighboring citizens and of the new residents of the application before you have not been addressed. I'm sure you're aware that public transportation is non-existent for this area, so it must be assumed that the residents will have vehicles. Because of the increase in the vehicles and the narrow streets and the limitations of the alley system make emergency evacuation even more difficult than it already is at this time. Access and egress for most of the residences in this development are dependent upon the alleyway system, especially in Area 6. The plan calls for parking lots accessed via the alleys. These alleys are essentially one-way and are not designed even for moderate traffic flow. Further, it is very difficult to get emergency or service vehicles down these alleys. A quote from the excellent KLD evacuation study commissioned by the city. Wildfires and the impacts thereof are a critical issue facing the world. During a wildfire, however, the transportation system can become inadequate due to unsafe roadway conditions, abandoned vehicles blocking the roadway, and congestion. As a result, the risk to public health and the environment and the potential loss for life increases. The very worrisome annual fire danger we all face cannot and should not be disregarded. When high density is coupled with street narrowing, you have a recipe for a catastrophe. Dropping high-density developments into neighborhoods with streets that do not have the capacity to properly evacuate the residents in a timely fashion is not only unconscionable, but borders on the criminal. According to the evacuation study, the North Mountain neighborhood will congest within 10 to 12 minutes. All of Ashland will be congested within 30 minutes. It'll take 4.5 hours to fully evacuate the city. If faced with another fast-moving Almeida-type fire, the neighborhood would quickly become a very crispy one indeed. Please strongly consider the safety of the citizens already inhabiting the neighborhood. Our homes may burn. Let us make sure we do our utmost to save our citizens and not intentionally put them in harm's way. Shouldn't lives take precedent over profit? Don't we all want to get out alive? The devastating fires of Alameda, Paradise, and Palisades put an even more urgent light on the wildfire safety. This is a quote from the Marin Independent Journal of California. We can no longer ignore the real-world consequences of promoting housing growth at all costs, ignoring the impacts on the safety of our citizens. So we've raised our issues and concerns to you, Madam Mayor and council members. According to planning, all the boxes have been checked, and the Planning Commission has been given approval, but in light of today's overwhelming dangers. Can I finish?
I'm sorry, but the procedures don't allow us to let you go beyond 10 minutes.
Yes, finish the sentence at all?
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Thank you for hearing us.
Thank you for hearing us. You have copies of this submitted to you, so you can read what I was able to say.
Thank you. Mr. Kyle Taylor, would you and your representatives please come forward to the podium, state your name, and summarize your appeal arguments? You will also have a total of 10 minutes.
I'm Mark Knox, 670 Depende Road.
So your time has started. Yes, go ahead. And if you can turn your microphones on, we'll actually start again, but you can turn your microphones on both sides, please, if you're both going to speak. But at whatever point you start to speak, that's when your 10 minutes begins.
Good evening, council members, mayor. My name is Sydney Dreyer with O'Connor West with offices at 670 G Street in Jacksonville, representing the applicant. Can you hear me okay?
If you could bring that microphone to you a little bit closer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. As noted by staff, the Ashland Municipal Code limits the scope of review to whether there was substantial evidence in the record to support the decision of the Planning Commission or whether the Planning Commission committed errors of law. The council cannot re-examine issues of fact, nor can it consider any new evidence before you. The appellants cite in their written testimony and in their testimony before you today a number of different code sections which they argue are not satisfied. For the most part, these arguments overlap between the various sections of the code and could be summarized as relating to density, building design, building orientation, traffic, and safety. Is that working? Let's see. Here we go. As to density, there was quite a bit of evidence in the record. The density of this project was based on the subdivision as a whole, and this area 3 was to allow between 23.44 and 40.91 units. Sorry, I need to put my glasses on. Areas 4 through 6 contain 22 dwellings. Not the 46 units that's referenced by the appellants, and I believe the staff calculated that out to 24 units. The testimony in the record that the appellants were told that this was going to be single-family homes, it's not clear where that came from, but this property has been zoned multifamily, not single-family, throughout an extensive period of time, I think at least 2008. 97, thank you. Okay, so looking at the building design, there have been arguments that the design of these buildings does not comply with the neighborhood standards. The code requires, and there's extensive evidence in the record, that the architectural features meet at least 2 of the standards that are listed on this list. And as you saw in the photos in the previous staff presentation and throughout the record, there is quite a bit of evidence that these dwellings contain at least 2 of the features that are required by these architectural standards, and the Planning Commission went through these features in much greater detail. As to the building orientation, there were arguments by the appellants that because Area 6 has 2 of the units that are facing alleys, that it does not meet the building orientation. The Planning Commission and the staff found that there was pedestrian access oriented out to the alleys, and there's a cross-access easement that orients these units back out to the street, and the alley is shown in this slide. This subdivision is part of the performance standards overlay, which allows a greater deal of flexibility to deal with infill development and topography and terrain. The streets in this project were part of the phase 1, and this particular area happens to be surrounded by alleys on 2 sides. The Planning Commission, as a matter of law, had the discretion under the performance standards to interpret this, which according to staff is consistent with the way it's been done in the past, to interpret this as having the correct street frontage because of the cross-access alley out to the street.
I'm going to add one thing, Sydney. Right where up near the blue arrow, this is evidence as far as past practice. That alley has units that have little porches, doorways on the alley, and it's an idea to aesthetically make the alleys pleasing to walking environments. So that was the intent, and it's been practiced.
As to traffic, the law is quite clear, and this is addressed in greater detail in my legal argument that was submitted in the record, that where a record contains expert evidence and the only evidence to the contrary is lay testimony, that lay testimony does not constitute substantial evidence in the record. In this case, the record contains information from 2 different traffic engineers that were hired by the applicant or with the earlier phases of this project that established that at full build-out, Kestrel Park subdivision will continue to operate at every studied intersection at level of service B or higher. The argument that there are too many homes taking access off the alleys, there's nothing in your code that restricts the number of residences that can take access off an alley, and in fact, as was noted in the record, the purpose of alleys is to provide vehicle access to limit the number of curb cuts in the street. As for neighborhood compatibility, the arguments here seem to be twofold. One is that the units are too small and therefore are not compatible with the single-family homes nearby. And the second is as to the design features. The design feature I already commented on. As to the size of the dwellings, again, what has to be considered here is that this is a multifamily zone that must meet minimum density for this zone. Areas 4 through 6 are actually below the minimum required density for phase 3. That will have to be completed with area 7. And again, this is detailed in my written argument, when you're looking at statutory construction and you have different provisions of the code, one is a general provision requiring compatibility, the other is a detailed provision requiring density for the zone. The statute or the code has to be interpreted in such a way as to give meaning to all, and the more specific provision by law should be interpreted more specifically than the general provision. So in this context, when we're looking at neighborhood compatibility, comparing the size of the units isn't relevant to compatibility when the reason the units are smaller is that they are multifamily units. And this is just a couple photos of some of the neighboring developments and then the design for this project, which, as you can see, and again, this is detailed in the record in greater detail, contains significantly compatible design features. Okay, so going on to alleys. There's evidence in the record, and there was testimony tonight that these alleys do not meet city standards and that some of these alleys are only 12 feet wide. There were civil plans that were submitted by the application, a formal PUD plan that establishes that all of the alleys in this area, upon development, will meet the 20-foot standard, not a 12-foot standard, and that even for those alleys that are already in place, those meet the city requirement of 16 feet of right-of-way rather than the 12 feet of right-of-way. The testimony that Julian Square is essentially one way, that is not supported by the 16 feet of right-of-way that's actually on the ground. And this just going back to the comment earlier about lay testimony does not defeat expert testimony. You have plans that were supported by the Public Works Department and your planning staff that all of the right-of-way meets your code standards and will be 20 feet at development, and the existing alleys are currently 16 feet of right-of-way, compared to lay testimony that these are 12-foot alleys. That does not amount to substantial evidence to defeat the Planning Commission's findings. Oh, I'm sorry. On safety, it's really the same legal issue that's before you. There's been a great deal of argument as to the lack of safety of this development, the inability to exit. There was testimony from Mr. Rappel, and if I'm misstating his name, I apologize, that these plans were developed a long time ago when density was still favored, but under current climate conditions, truly dense development in this area is no longer appropriate. It must be said that unfortunately, when we're talking about land use and the land use planning process, the only thing that the city can consider is what are your current code standards? What is the current zoning? What are the current right-of-way requirements? What are the current public works standards? Someone might come in the future and choose to redesign this whole area, and if new code standards were implemented and the property wasn't developed yet, the city could enforce those new code standards. What the city cannot do, though, is deny an application because somebody thinks that it's no longer a good idea for the city. These are the code standards in place. These are the fixed goalpost rules that the city is operating under. The record is replete with evidence that this application meets road standards, building orientation, compatibility, alley width, fire safety.
How much time do they have left? 20 seconds.
There's a condition to meet the fire control and prevention plan, prohibited plants in place. There was no evidence from the fire department or the police department that this application does not meet your requirements. This was conditioned on fire turnaround locations that meet the city standards. Again, when you're looking at the record, lay testimony that this area is not safe versus the expert testimony. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions for me?
Are there questions? Nope. Nope. Thank you.
Thank you.
I will now call forward those who participated in the original hearings and provided written comments on the points of appeal in advance of this appeal hearing and who have provided a speaker request form to the city recorder. I have the listing here. Has anyone else added their documentation? Great. So I have just the one. Mr. Dennis Holman, if you can come to the podium, the stand-up podium to your left, you'll have 3 minutes, and the recorder will give you a single chime at 20 seconds and then a double chime when your time is completed. And if you can pull that microphone in nice and close so we can hear you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Dennis Holman. I live at 822 Plum Ridge Drive. I've been there since moving to Ashland in March of 2015. By way of background, I'm a retired professional engineer. I am president of the Mountain Meadows Plum Ridge Condominium Association, and I'm also chair of the Mountain Meadows Emergency Preparedness and Safety Committee, a position that I've held for nearly 10 years. In that role, I've made great efforts to educate the Mountain Meadows residents on preparing to respond to a wide range of emergencies. I have closely followed the growing density of the North Mountain neighborhood as it has developed, including the Julian Square and Meadowbrook Park and Kestrel Park developments. I've been increasingly concerned about emergency vehicle access and particularly evacuation of residents in an emergency fire situation. Obviously, the Almeda fire has highlighted the importance of emergency evacuation. As is broadly recognized, excuse me, the whole neighborhood is entirely dependent on North Mountain Avenue as the access, and the ability of all North Mountain neighborhood residents to access North Mountain Avenue is a critical factor for the safety of these residents. I'm particularly concerned for the residents of Mountain Meadows and Skylark because they tend to be older and reduced ability. So I urge the council to consider the Kestrel Park Phase 3 development in its current design standards in light of the emergency vehicle access and resident evacuation issues. Thank you.
Thank you. So I want to address the other speaker request forms that we have. We have several folks who have signed up to speak this evening who are part of the appellant team. And as such, Doug, can you just help me with this? As such, since they are part of the appellant team, it's my understanding that they are not able to come forward and do 3 minutes of testimony at this point, that was the 10 minutes earlier. Is that correct?
They are, they haven't done any written responses prior to this, is that, to the Planning Commission, is that correct?
They are listed in my documentation as part of the appellant team. Go ahead, Alyssa.
If I may, I had them fill out forms just for the record, not necessarily.
So they're not
that they
necessarily
needed
looking to speak. Okay.
Right.
Great, thank you. And I just want to acknowledge that we did have 2 people who signed up this evening, but had not participated in the process adequately up to this point to be able to speak. So if you gave us a speaker request form and you were not part of the appellant team and we're not calling you forward, it is for that reason. Does the council have any questions of staff, or does the staff have any matter that they wish to respond to? Councilor Dale.
I have one question for Brandon, if you don't mind, please, Mayor. Brandon, thank you. I just have a quick question, please. In 18.3.5.030 C1, under supplemental approval criteria, it says within the North Mountain District shall also meet the following criteria. 1, the application demonstrates conformity to the general design requirements of the North Mountain Neighborhood Plan, including density, transportation, building design, and building orientation. Could you please provide clarification on what conformity to the general design requirements means?
You know, Aaron Anderson may chime in, but in general, when you adopt a master plan for an area, it comes with underlying zoning designations in order to delineate the density of housing within different areas. So one of the areas of conformity would be the multifamily zone anticipation for this particular property within the North Mountain neighborhood, that it would meet the intended densities as well as the design requirements. And those do incorporate a list, a menu of design elements that properties developed within the North Mountain neighborhood would have to include, such as gables, dormers, and I don't have the full list in front of me. But as part of the Planning Commission's review and staff review, we did ensure that each of the units as proposed did contain those elements in order to align with the design, that the density of development aligned with the density proposed for the North Mountain Neighborhood Plan multifamily zone. And I think that might address your question unless there's something.
And transportation.
And in terms of transportation, as part of adopting a neighborhood master plan, we also adopted the transportation network and it was acknowledged through the transportation system plan that shows road connectivity throughout the master planned area. This property specifically had the terminations of neighboring streets into it, and the expectation for when this property was to develop, that those streets would be connected, which is part of the proposal before you this evening. In terms of the alley access, which was also one point of contention, our design standards for alley improvements do point to having alley accesses for the purposes of loading vehicles with reducing the number of curb cuts on the street instead of every unit having its own independent driveway. Further, in the North Mountain neighborhood specifically, there was a pedestrian orientation or pedestrian use expectation for the alley infrastructure, which is accommodated by the application.
Thank you very much, Brandon. I appreciate that.
Other questions? Councillor Hanson?
Thank you, and I appreciate everybody coming tonight and all of your testimony and input, as well as all this hard work by staff. My questions might seem outside of this, but they will be relevant, I think. We circle back here. Brandon, do you recall when, was it ODOT installed the access onto I-5 heading southbound?
I do.
Yeah, do you remember when that was?
Oh, I don't recall the date. I know that it was subsequent to the Alameda fire in order to promote evacuation potential for one way onto the freeway. It wasn't reviewed as part of this application because, again, the transportation connectivity
right, and I made that disclaimer. This
Yeah.
is separate. And another separate question, just for context: are there any plans that you know of? I don't know. That's why I'm asking to connect East Nevada over Bear Creek.
During the Planning Commission hearing.
Hold on just a second, Brandon. I just want to remind the audience that this is a formal public hearing, and so there isn't to be any noise coming from the audience. Thank you. Go ahead, Brandon.
And in order to respond and address it in a manner of information that was included in the record, at the Planning Commission hearing, there was discussion in terms of a bridge crossing over Bear Creek connecting East and West Nevadas. As a condition of approval of the application, as has been a condition in phase 1 and phase 2 of the broader area as well, each of the property owners would be required to sign in favor of a local improvement district to pay a proportionate share for a bridge crossing. So that is something within our transportation system plan, but is a capital improvement project that would have to be budgeted through the capital improvement plan in order to be executed. As a condition, again, of this application, each of the property owners within the subdivision would pay a proportional share of those costs for that bridge.
Thanks for that context. I know it's not in the TSP yet, and we are looking to redo the transportation system plan. Again, I know this is outside of this appeal, but I just wanted to bring these.
So we need to stay inside the appeal elements. Councillor Kaplan.
Thanks, Mayor. Brandon, there was I heard two different things from the appellant and the applicant about the density in this area. Could you just go over that?
Yeah,
what
I think
is
Aaron
the actual?
can speak to it. In short, I do think that the density, there's the number of units, the density, how do I frame this? Small units count, if they're less than 500 square feet, count as 0.75 units. And I think that may be a factor in some of the discrepancy between the 22 and 24 number. But Aaron, if you could provide what the minimum density requirement is. And specifically, it was discussed at the Planning Commission, Area 7, when that develops subsequent to this application, would have to accommodate additional density in order to satisfy the entire subdivision's minimum density requirement.
I would just, this slide is from Ms. Dreyer's presentation, which is from the findings. And it lists out, again, this is taking the entire subdivision from phase 1 through phase 3 into consideration. And as you can see here, the remaining minimum density range for this project for the entire area was between 24, because you can't make 23, it would be less, up to 40. In terms of what's being proposed in Phase 3, after the exclusion of Area 7, is a total of 24 dwellings. But as Brandon just mentioned, because dwellings that are less than 500 square feet count as 0.75 dwellings for the purposes of density, even though it was 24 dwellings, it counts as 22. So when taking this math and subtracting 22 from it, to satisfy the minimum density requirements, because again, we're talking about minimum density here, as well as maximum, the remaining density for Area 7, to meet the minimum density, the applicant would need to propose at least 2 residential lots. But they could go up to 18 residential dwellings. So this is with regards to Area 7, which is not yet before us because that has been reserved now for a future planning action.
So I would further qualify that we're talking about 40-unit total potential, including Area 7. The appellant's argument indicated that the applicant was proposing 46 units, which is not supported by the application, as they're currently only proposing 24 units of independent dwellings calculated as a 22-unit density.
Councilor Nauer?
Staying with density, gentlemen. Density that was proposed by this application for 4, 5, 6, and 7. Is that density being calculated just on this applicant's project, or does it in any way incorporate the other parts of North Mountain Meadow project that were already built? So is it a combined density overall, or is it a density for the applicant's project?
No, so this is the, again, if you look here, there's Phase 1 and Phase 2 are called out in this table. If we go back to my other slide deck, in terms of the zoning and the build-out, you can see here that Phase 1 of Kestrel, which includes these 4 lots here that are single-family lots, which were in the multifamily zone, as well as all of these single-family lots. And then Phase 2 spanned both the single-family zone and the multifamily zone and included all of those units. And so what we're talking about here is density for the entire project area, and then subtracting what was approved in Phase 1 and approved in Phase 2. And this is what's being considered under this application.
So to your point, all 3 phases are cumulative in terms of calculating density.
Right. And just a quick one, if I'm off topic, stop me, but was there ever a reason given why 7 was pulled?
Is that within the frame of this, Doug? I just need to ask a quick question.
I'm going to rely on Brandon on whether or not,
Yeah, the applicant did present to the city council or planning commission during the public hearing that they had heard neighborhood concerns about the building design on Area 7, and in lieu of looking to address those as part of this application, voluntarily withdrew it with the expectation of working with the neighborhood and coming back with a secondary proposal following this application. So I think it was in response to neighbor concerns.
And if I, go ahead, Aaron.
I was just going to add to what Brandon said, that on page 4 of the council communication, it includes a quote from the applicant on the reason that they removed it, and I could certainly read it to you if you'd like. What the quote says, based on comments received from the neighboring property owners of the proposed Kestrel Park Phase 3 application, the applicants have decided to withdraw Area 7 from the application, including all associated entitlement requests, such as the proposed property lines, tree removal, and site review proposal. The applicants are still proposing to move forward with the remaining areas 4, 5, and 6, and will eventually reapply for entitlements for Area 7 in the future.
Thank you.
And did I hear correctly that because of how things are being proposed for 4, 5, and 6, that 7 will have to be even more dense than it was originally proposed, or not?
So the table that was included in the findings indicated that when Area 7 comes in order to meet the minimum density, it would have to provide at least 2 lots. In order to not exceed the maximum density, it could not exceed 18 individual dwelling units. And so provided an application for Area 7 comes in between 2 and 18 units, it would be in compliance with the density expectations for all 3 phases cumulatively.
Thank you.
Counselor Blue?
Thank you. I have very specific questions here. Really is just a yes or no. Does this project comply with all applicable zoning, density, and design standards under the North Mountain Neighborhood Plan and Ashland Municipal Code?
Yes.
Have city departments, including Public Works and Fire, confirmed that infrastructure, emergency access, and public services are sufficient to support this development?
There are findings to that effect in the Planning Commission's findings, so yes.
Thank you. And did the Planning Commission's decision follow proper legal procedures, and is it supported by substantial evidence?
Yes.
Thank you.
Counselor Duquesne?
Thank you, Mayor. Brandon, quick question. When I look at Area 6, how many acres is that? Is it 2?
I have the lot size available in square footage. Basically, it's 0.47 acres is what it works out to.
And the units would be 22?
So the 22 units are spread across areas 4, 5, and 6.
Okay, and then I had a quick question about the alleys. We were going back and forth on the alleys. The alleys that are going to be in place are one-way, just like the others, or are they?
No, I think the alleys are not unidirectional. People can come and go through the alleys. They are narrow, so queuing is often necessary. They're not built out to a standard that allows 2 cars to pass without one necessarily queuing in a shoulder area.
Thank you. Thanks, Brandon.
Any other questions of staff? Okay, thank you. Mr. Kyle Taylor, would you or your legal counsel please come forward to the podium and provide any rebuttal arguments you may have? You will have 3 minutes. And Alyssa, please give them a signal at 10 seconds.
Thank you. I believe that council asked some really good questions of staff, and I believe that staff actually has responded in great detail as to the standards that are in place. Like I said, there's quite a bit of evidence in the record from primarily experts that all of the criteria are met: traffic, alley width, building orientation, height. The comment that these buildings are too tall, the maximum building height in the zone is 35 feet. The tallest home is designed to be 26 feet, and that is only on the downhill side. So the uphill side, as you saw in some of those photos with the daylight basement, would be the equivalent of 1 story. Let's see. There was sufficient evidence in the record that, as conditioned, all standards will be met, including meeting any fire prevention plan, the prohibited plants. There was testimony in the record about stormwater detention and runoff. This application is conditioned upon submitting civil plans to meet all. I cited to the standard in my letter. I don't have it off the top of my head, but we will be required to not increase the flows onto other properties. And this property was sized with, I think, a 12-inch stormwater detention right down at the corner of, I think, Kestrel, okay. So again, all of the concerns of the neighbors, I understand they're not happy with the project, and they may or may not be familiar with the land use process. And so I try, I have sensitivity toward that, but the legal standard, as you all are aware, is, does this application comply with the code? Was there substantial evidence in the record to support all of these criteria? And did the Planning Commission commit errors of law? If you find that there is substantial evidence in the record to support the Planning Commission's decision, which we contend there is a great deal of substantial evidence, and the Planning Commission did not commit any errors of law, then the decision of the Planning Commission must be affirmed and the appeal should be rejected. Thank you. Any questions? Thank you.
No, thank you. At this time, I will close the public hearing. The hearing and the record are now closed. We are at a time of deliberation by council. In order to structure the deliberation, I would like to know if any counselor would like to discuss in more detail any of the 8 points of appeal before us. Okay. The floor is open for a motion.
I'm happy to make a motion.
Counselor Bloom.
I move to affirm the decision of the Planning Commission and reject the appeal for the reasons that there is substantial evidence in the record to support the Planning Commission's decision, that the Planning Commission did not commit any errors of law, and to adopt the Planning Commission's findings of fact as the City Council's own.
I'll second that.
Counselor Bloom.
Yeah, just briefly. This project aligns with Ashland's housing, land use, and infrastructure goals by providing a balanced mix of single-family and multifamily housing in a designated growth area. It follows the North Mountain Neighborhood Plan, meets density and design standards, and ensures sufficient infrastructure capacity for water, sewer, and transportation. Concerns about traffic and fire evacuation are important citywide issues, but this development does not exceed legal limits or pose undue risk. Emergency access and fire safety standards have been met. Denying this project would set a precedence against well-planned, code-compliant development, making it harder for Ashland to meet its housing and sustainability objectives. For these reasons, I urge my colleagues to support this motion and allow the project.
Counselor Dale.
Thank you, Mayor. I've read through all the material here, and I appreciate all the testimony tonight. I certainly have thoughts about this, and I may or may not agree with Ashland Municipal Code or parts of it. Nevertheless, it is the code currently, and therefore law. And under normal circumstances, we may be able to discuss this as a legislative body. However, tonight, our responsibility and role is to determine if there were any errors of law committed. Based on all testimony this evening and materials presented, I see no errors of law.
Any further discussion? Counselor Duquesne.
Thank you, Mayor. I too appreciate the people that have come forth with testimony. I appreciate the presentation that was given with the details of the studies, the code, the laws, and I can't help but reflect on the retreat that this body had, and at the top of everyone's list was wildfire. The expertise from the professionals, I appreciate it, and I also appreciate the lived experiences from the lay experience from our residents who live there. So our codes not violated, everything seems to be together. Like I said, I do appreciate it, but in all due respect, I cannot, I don't feel comfortable with approving this because this subdivision, the master design, I don't know when that was put in place, but when I look at climate change and I look at density and the situation in the area, I don't feel comfortable with it. I can't support this.
Councillor Hanson.
I also thank the appellants and the developer for all of your thoughtful concern and efforts to this project. I don't see any violations in code or law. As your neighbor, I feel for your safety in that neighborhood as I feel for the safety in my neighborhood. My neighborhood, if it could be redesigned, I believe we could do a better job. This council, this community has a responsibility to make all of our neighborhoods safer. And I see opportunity here with better access to I-5, with Nevada Street development. Is that what we're here to talk about today? No. But did I ask the question to shine a light on opportunity? Yeah, I did. And I think that although I really support this project and I will be supporting this motion, I invite you to hold us accountable as a community that we can do better and we can have better access to egress and regress for emergencies. And I do not feel in my heart that the 24 additional neighbors are going to like wholesale move the needle. So I will be supporting this, and I wish everybody the best. And again, I encourage you to hold us all accountable to make all of our communities better for egress and regress in a emergency situation. And thank
Councilor
you for your
Kaplan.
time.
Oh, Counselor, Counselor.
Yeah.
I thought you were done. Counselor Kaplan.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I too want to thank everybody for coming in and testifying before us. Our task in this process is quite narrow. It's a quasi-judicial process to determine whether the Planning Commission met its charge and had a correct finding of fact. I have not seen anything that suggests to me that they have not. So I will be voting to uphold this. I'll be voting for the motion. I do think that some of the issues that folks have raised about wildfire and evacuation are important, extremely important, and I think that's a track that we will be continuing to discuss as part of our regular legislative process and budgeting process in the next few weeks and months. So appreciate everybody coming, and I'm going to be supporting the motion.
Counselor Nauer.
Well, folks, this it's not an easy decision, but this council just this last weekend went through some wildfire exercises. It is forefront in our mind, as was already mentioned by another councilor here. It was the number one item for us as we were looking at priorities going forward, because if we burn, what's the use of anything else that we have going on here? All I can suggest, given the narrow range in which we're being allowed to function tonight, is that it sounds to me like your community has a very robust collection of volunteer people who are helping with hazard planning and such. There was a speech by the gentleman earlier that was saying that this was quite robust. Stick with it, practice it, make certain that you can make yourself safe. If it is forefront of your concern, please keep working on it. I live on a dead-end street. I think about it every time we get to about June. So I do understand it, but we are quite constrained tonight, so I know how I will have to vote.
Roll call, please, Alyssa.
Nauer,
Aye.
Dale,
Yes.
Bloom,
Yes.
Kaplan.
Yes.
Duquesne,
No.
Hanson.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming this evening. We are now at public forum. If you could, I just would ask that folks who are heading on your way out, if you can get out to the foyer before you talk so that we can carry on with our business. Thank you. We are now at public hearing.
Your Honor.
Your Honor.
Mayor.
Sir, officer, if you can help us, please. Thank you.
Yes, we are on the next item, which is an ordinance for second reading, ordinance 3256 for amendment to the AMC 2.30 Uniform Administrative Appeals Process, designating the municipal court as the administrative appeals body. There was nothing that was changed that I'm aware of since last reading, and so it is up and prepared for your vote. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to help you with those.
Any questions of staff? Councilor Dale?
Yes, actually, there was something changed, and we have sorry, Doug, there's the first and the second reading. I think Carmel was here, and that's probably why you don't recall.
That's right.
Yeah. We changed, we deleted the actual numerical figure and said that would be set by resolution. So I just want to make sure that staff's ready to go with updating, I believe, the miscellaneous. However that goes, just want to make sure that stays on the radar so that we don't leave that as a hanging to-do item.
Okay, so I'm looking for numerical.
But it was $150 that we struck and changed to set by resolution, just so that we didn't, so there was the.
Okay, I would like to Okay, if you could point that out to
You
me,
bet.
I'm
Give me
sorry.
1 second.
Right there. Okay, if I may, just read that section.
Sure.
Since it was changed. So that would be section, it's 2.30.020, section C. The appellant shall pay a non-refundable appeal fee to facilitate the appeal period. The appeal fees shall be set at $150 for each decision appealed and may be adjusted by resolution of the Ashland City Council. And what you want to do is remove.
Correct. Yeah, so if I may, Mayor.
Yes.
In the first reading, we actually, the motion itself included the new language and was read out loud.
Yep, okay, I have it now.
It's
Thank
in-
you.
Okay, cool.
All right, I didn't see.
So we will be voting,
put
I
two-
believe, on that.
It's 2 copies in my, sorry about that. Okay, C again.
Yep.
The appellant shall pay a non-refundable appeals fee to facilitate the appeal. Appeal fees shall be set by resolution of this Ashland City Council, period.
Yes. And just to be clear for anyone watching from home, the version that we are considering this evening is the second version.
The second
Yes.
version, yes. Thank you.
Yes, great. Any further questions of staff? Okay. The floor is open for a motion. Councillor Hanson?
I'm happy to make a motion. I move to approve the second reading of ordinance number 3256.
Second.
Great. Councillor Hanson?
Glad to see this move to second reading, and I was confused by the first and the second also being in the packet too, but I'm glad that we got that change made.
Councillor Duquesne?
Enough said. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please, Alyssa.
Hanson,
Yes.
Duquesne,
Yes.
Kaplan.
Yes.
Bloom,
Yes.
Dale.
Yes.
Nauer.
Yes.
So we have this evening also Resolution 2025-02, a resolution of the City of Ashland rescinding all former memoranda of understanding in light of the passage of Ordinance 3248, which created the Ashland Parks and Recreation Department. Doug or Sabrina, do either of you have opening comments for us?
Sure, this is just a follow-up to last time's ordinance for the Parks and Rec Department. So this will dissolve all the MOUs that were in place, as that ordinance will be the guiding document moving forward.
And I should also add that it will take effect when the new ordinance does go into effect. So this resolution just is riding along until the 30 days after the last decision. That's February 18th. So it'd be March 20th when this takes effect.
Okay, great. Other questions for staff? Okay. Any deliberations, comments? Well, I have a couple of comments. A lot of the time that we have had discussions about the city and Ashland Parks and Recreation Commission, there's been a lot of confusion around the lanes of these two elected bodies, in large part because the memoranda of understanding came along at different points in its history and stacked on top of each other. And so all of the work that was done to get to the ordinance that we passed on second reading at the last meeting, a big part of that was so that all of this would go away and we would have a clear single ordinance. So it is boring government at its very best, and I am so excited. I can't even hardly express myself. So if there are no further comments, Councillor Dale.
Ready to make a motion when you are, Mayor.
Yes, go ahead.
I move to approve Resolution 2025-02.
Second.
Councillor Dale?
Mayor, I think you summed it up quite nicely. I was waiting to speak to that. I just wanted to echo that. I appreciate the collaboration with the council, with staff, with legal, with the Parks Commission, getting around to finally putting together a nice comprehensive Parks Department. We beat that up quite a bit, and I think we got it. And absolutely, I second boring government at its finest is outstanding. So happy to support this, and I'm glad we're here. It's just very well-written code moving forward.
Great. And
There's
Councilor
no more
Bloom?
value to be added to either of their statements, so.
Any other discussion? Councilor Hanson?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank the commission and yourself and Councilor Hyatt bringing the two bodies together and starting this work last year and putting a bow on it now seems like it happened quickly, but it actually did not. So thank you for your due diligence all the way around. And here's, looking forward to new projects and new ambition of collaboration together.
Councilor Duquesne.
Thank you, Mayor. I too am excited that we could check this box because we were dragging it down the road for so long. And the opportunity to streamline and work together and have continuity in the city is important. So I'm glad this is happening, and I truly support it.
And I just wanted to say thank you to staff as well. It has been a lift at the staffing level, particularly in the legal department, to get to this point. So if there are no further comments.
Thank Doug.
Roll call, please, Alyssa.
Kaplan,
Yes.
Duquesne,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Nauer,
Yes.
Hale,
Yes.
Bloom.
Yes.
Great, thank you. We are now to the city manager report. We
Point
get to
of-
do one this night.
Point of information.
Yes.
I thought we didn't do that. Do we do that?
No, we do.
Okay.
I don't even know. Okay.
Yeah, 45 minutes.
We do it whenever
Go
we
through
possibly
every
can.
single bullet point tonight. Buckle up. Brought a PowerPoint. No, just kidding. We'll start with the fun stuff, some upcoming events. We have our second Ollie course coming online in April. This one will be specific to our finances since it is budget season. So I think that will be a timely course. You can register through Ollie, and it's called Show Me the Money, Finances of Local Government. So we are preparing for that and looking forward to it. Our Rogue Valley Bike Swap will be April 26th, the noon to 2:30. You can buy, sell, or donate bikes, parts, and accessories. So we hope to see you there. And then I'm going to butcher this, but our sister city in Ukraine,
Sviatahirsk.
is having a benefit concert and informational gathering on March 30th at 2 p.m. So more information can be found in this report. There's links online. Some other things that are going on in the city, our renovation of the community center is picking back up after the MAC and city council recommendations. We are continuing to find additional work that needs to be dealt with. The latest has been weak soils and a high water table. So we are running a little bit above budget. And so currently we are forecasted to be done potentially late summer, early fall of this year, pending discovering anything else. In contrast, Pioneer Hall is on schedule and should be completed by this spring. Our only caveat would be if there is delays in deliveries of materials. So we are keeping an eye on that. Want to give another shout out for all of our staff who, especially parks, have continued to clean up our parks after the storm. A lot of down branches, we continue to deal with that. So they've been doing an excellent job. A shout out to Dina Adden in AFN. She's been with us 25 years, so she's well loved in the community. I'm sure everyone knows who she is, so she is a rock star. So we thank her for all her service to the city. What else? Fire chief's retiring, we talked about that. It's budget season, we've talked about that, something to look forward to. We're expanding our citizen self-service portal and community development for 1- and 2-family dwellings, ADUs, and commercial tenant improvements, change of use permits, and tree removal permits. So we are expanding InterGov is what it's called, so that type of permits you can get online for self-service. So that has been going really well. A shout out to April in community development, who has basically built that entire system. She has been a rock star. It feels like enough. I've had enough time. Thank you.
Great. Councilor Nauer.
Could I have 20 seconds just to share a quick Dina story?
Sure, and then what we'll do is we'll start the liaison, other business from council members and reports from council liaisons. We'll start with your 20-second story.
My 20-second on recognition of Dina and her work is that when I moved into this community, bought the house, the line coming to the house, my internet was not working like it should. They dispatched the truck, came there 8 minutes later. Service levels are great. This little tiny woman gets out, Dina, She takes a look at it. She says, "Oh, I got that." She goes out to the street, click, 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 fixes it. And then she says, "Well, you've got all this wisteria on the line, and it really shouldn't be there. And I've got this cherry picker truck here. I can take care of that for you." So she took the wisteria off the whole line leading up to the house there. She says, "I already had the appointment time." She says, "This was such an easy fix." I love Dina.
Okay, any other updates from council liaisons? Councilor Kaplan.
Yeah, I do. The Housing and Human Services Committee had a community resources fair on February 26th, which is last week. There were about 20 organizations, I think, focusing on issues of housing and also social services, and I think nearly 100 visitors. It was very, very well attended, and there was a lot of buzz. The other one is, I've been meaning to say this for the last few sessions, the Oregon Department of Energy is developing an Oregon energy strategy to identify pathways to achieve the state's energy objectives. The strategy is set up to evaluate benefits and challenges of different pathways, reflecting input from Oregonians across the state, and present policy recommendations to the governor and legislature by November 2025. So as part of that effort, ODO has created 5 working groups that are going to be meeting through the spring. They've actually already started meeting. We had a joint meeting. I've been invited to participate in the Building Efficiency and Electrification Working Group, which is going to have its first meeting tomorrow morning, a 3-hour Zoom, not 9 hours, a 3-hour Zoom starting at 9. Right? And I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be really great. There's been the modeling work that was done to set up the strategy was very, very serious indeed, and we had a deep dive into that. And the 4 other working groups I'll just mention are developing clean energy generation and transmission, transportation electrification, low carbon fuels, and environmental justice and equity. And as I said, the objective of all of this is to present recommendations for ODO to present recommendations to the governor by November.
Okay. Other updates? Councilor Dale.
Sure, thank you. I've just got a couple. Just to shout out again to Historic Preservation. It's always fun to meet with that group. Their role has changed a little bit. They're adapting because of our new codes. There's not a lot of reviews that they do, so they have pivoted quite nicely to working on updating the historic preservation plan that was last written in 2008. So they are going through that. They're taking that piece by piece, and it's really cool to watch. I mean, there is literally hundreds of years of just experience and institutional knowledge on that committee. It's fascinating, and also they have. Because just 2025 is flying. Historic Preservation Week is May 11th through 17th. So that just is to get that out there. We'll talk about surge in a little bit, but also I just want a little quick thing. I was just having a conversation with Public Works staff today, and it's a management advisory committee, but Airport Day is coming back June 7th or 8th, whatever is, I think it's 7th, the first Saturday in June. It kind of coincides with graduation, so that's going to be another one. So I'm sure Councilor Kaplan will talk to about CPAC as well. That's what I've got.
Councilor Hanson.
Thanks, Mayor. The Transportation Advisory Committee met here in the council chambers for their in-person meeting this month. They are reviewing our crash and near miss data. We also discussed the e-bike municipal code issues and wanted to make the recommendation that we saw here tonight at tonight's meeting, as well as going over wayfinding project updates, safe streets, roads for all, and the TSP planning update. And we're looking forward to the bike swap, and I hear there's going to be a food truck there.
Oh, nice.
Exciting.
Nice. Councilor Duquesne.
Thank you. It's good to hear what our committees are doing and the good work that our committees are doing. So I did want to touch a little bit on Surge, and Surge has kind of reconstructed themselves, and instead of going to their meetings and kind of preaching to the choir, they have now gone and branched out and are partnering with other committees to be able to work together and see how we can better work together as committees. looking at the equity and the social justice part of everything, because we're all intertwined and we all need to look through everything through an equitable lens. And it really has kind of ignited some spark into the committee, so I'm excited about that. And PAC is Public Arts Advisory Committee. They are really taking a deep dive and looking at how we can better maintain our public art, the money that we have to maintain our public art, and getting more public art into Ashland. So I'm very excited about the direction that both committees are going in. So I look forward to a successful 2025.
Councillor Bloom?
Yeah, just real quick, since we all like to say something, I'd like to say thank you to all my colleagues up here and city staff for Saturday. I'm still really riding high off of that. I felt like it was incredibly productive. Would love to do more of them. But this one was really important, and we really set what our new priorities are as a group. And I feel like we were very unified on that, which I think is really important, and our priorities for the budget. There's a lot of challenges ahead, but based on Saturday, boy, Ashland's going to be kicking butt. I was going to say another word, but kicking butt here in the future. So thanks everyone. Like that was awesome.
Do you know Mayor?
Councillor Nauer?
Nothing more to add because we got the presentation tonight, pretty much.
Yeah, the Planning Commission is its own beast. Councillor Kaplan.
Mayor, Councillor Dale reminded me that we should also mention the work at the CPAC. We gave the CPAC the assignment back in December, sometime in December, to review the incentives, energy efficiency incentives, and they've started work on that. And I don't think they're bringing that back to us, but they're bringing that to this. They're helping advise the staff to upgrade our incentives. And also to implement the swapping out of package terminal air conditioners for package terminal heat pumps in those buildings that have them. In many cases, rental buildings, low rental, well, relatively low priced rental buildings. And they're making progress on that too. I understand they've got a plan for how to reach out to all of the property owners and start forward on that. So good progress on that.
Great. And I have an announcement that I have been named to the Public Safety Coordinating Council for Jackson County, and so I will start that service this month. The council has a position for a mayor in the valley, and so that's the position that I will be serving in. So that will start again later on this month, and we will be looking a lot at the system this year and the component pieces of the system. And so I look forward to talking to anyone in this community that is interested in seeing what that work looks like and having opinions about that. So if there are no further liaison announcements, Councillor Bloom?
Time move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting is adjourned. Safe travels home.
That's the one thing I got.
We don't even know.
I know.
We just think, did we bring our sleeping bags? We're never getting out.
Well, you say you want to get something done, give it to
I think, yeah, I mean, that's what I think, actually, this.
I see. Okay.